Chapter 2372. 2372 Thunder Ocean. 2372 Thunder Ocean. The Perfected One Heavenly Tribulation. The expressions of Yin Zue and the others changed starkly as disbelief filled their faces. Even Feng Cantion, Gu Tongyu, and the others were shocked. They had not expected the martial Tao prime body to attract a heavenly tribulation at this moment. Throughout history, the matter of tribulation transcendence was extremely dangerous and concerned one's life and death. One would either look for a secluded and deserted place or be guarded by experts of their sects or family clans, who would run into a crowd to undergo tribulation transcendence. This guy had an absolute death wish. The more cultivators gathered in the surroundings, the wider the radius of the heavenly tribulation and the might of the heavenly tribulation that was triggered would increase as well. Now that the million-strong Fiend army was present, the level of the Perfected One heavenly tribulation that was triggered was unimaginable. Ha 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 ha. Dragon Fiend burst into laughter. So, you haven't undergone tribulation transcendence yet and can't even be considered as a perfected fiend. Are you trying to kill us with the Perfected One heavenly tribulation? We're all at the peak of the Perfected One realm. The Perfected One heavenly tribulation is of no threat to us. The Fiend Saber, Li Patian, chuckled as well. What are you laughing at? Yin Zue glared at the two of them coldly and grit his teeth. We can defend against the Perfected One heavenly tribulation, but what about the million-strong Fiend army around us? The hearts of Dragon Fiend and the others skipped a beat as they finally realized the terrifying consequences of this matter. Tribulation clouds filled the firmaments and extended for thousands of kilometers boundlessly, clearly enveloping the million-strong Fiend army. Although the might of the million-strong Fiend army was great, they were formed by Earth Immortals and Heaven Immortals. Even Grade 9 Heaven Immortals could not defend against the Perfected One heavenly tribulation. The million-strong Fiend army realized that a calamity was approaching as well. All the fiends looked at the firmaments and felt the terrifying might of the tribulation clouds. They were uneasy and bewildered. What are you waiting for? Hurry and escape. Dragon Fiend roared. The million-strong Fiend army dispersed and sprinted outside. Every cultivator released all their movement techniques and divine powers, wanting to leave this place quickly. But even teleportation could only cover 1,000 feet. Hurry and go. Heavenly Wolf was the first to react as he urged Yin Beichen, Mingzhan, and the others to run to the Hell Suppression Tripod. Their cultivation realms had not reached the Perfected One realm, and they could not withstand the impact of the Perfected One heavenly tribulation. Yin Beichen and the others realized that this was no small matter as well, and did not dare to be careless. They arrived beneath the Hell Suppression Tripod one after another. It was only at this moment that Gu Tongyu and Xiao Siluo understood why some of the things the martial Tao Prime Body said previously sounded like nonsense. Xiao Siluo was speechless. No wonder why Sect Master Desolate Marshal said that it would be inconvenient to bring more people under the control of the martial Tao Prime Body and the Hell Suppression Tripod. Although the tripod body had grown slightly, the radius it could cover was not large and 10 people were not a problem. If he brought too many people, they would become burdens instead. The Perfected One heavenly tribulation did not have its own consciousness, let alone know which side the cultivators were on. When the heavenly tribulation descended, it was an indiscriminate attack that no one could dodge. I wonder if this tripod can defend against the Perfected One heavenly tribulation. Gu Tongyu looked at the Hell Suppression Tripod above his head and murmured softly. Heavenly Wolf rolled his eyes and patted him on the shoulder. Don't worry, if this thing can't defend against it, there's probably no other weapon in the world that can. The tribulation clouds in the firmaments intensified and began to spin continuously, forming a gigantic tribulation cloud vortex with red lightning faintly visible within. Crack! Finally, the first heavenly tribulation arrived. The location of the martial Tao Prime Body was right in the middle of the vortex of the tribulation clouds. The scale of the heavenly tribulation was also the most terrifying. A scarlet thunderbolt as thick as an adult's arm descended vertically and smashed onto the head of the martial Tao Prime Body. The martial Tao Prime Body stood motionlessly and did not even raise his hand. Just like that, he endured the first heavenly tribulation. At the same time, dense scarlet thunderbolts descended from the tribulation clouds in the millions like a storm. It was practically a blizzard of lightning. What happened was way too shocking. Beneath the hell suppression tripod, Heavenly Wolf, Gu Tongyu, and the others widened their eyes in shock. In their vision, the territory before them had already turned into a sea of blood-red lightning. The million-strong Fiend army had fallen into it, and no one was spared. The might of the million-strong Fiend army was so massive that it was difficult to defend against. However, in the face of the heavenly tribulation, they seemed so insignificant and vulnerable. For the earth immortals and heaven immortals, the power of the perfected one heavenly tribulation was a devastating catastrophe. The scene before them was like thunder from the wrath of the heavens. Instantly, countless Fiend cultivators turned into ashes and died. Among the million-strong Fiend army, an extremely small number of top-tier heaven immortals relied on various trump cards, divine powers, secret skills, Dharmic treasures, and talismans to barely survive the first heavenly tribulation. However, all the earth immortals were turned into ashes by the first heavenly tribulation, and none of them were spared. Not a single trace of bloodline or bone was left. They were literally erased from the world. Most of the heaven immortals could not defend against it either and exploded into pieces, destroying their essence spirits. In the 5,000 kilometers of territory with Zephyr Thunder Palace as the center, corpses were strewn and blood flowed everywhere. It was like a living hell. The four perfected fiends, Yin Zue, Fairy Purple River, Dragon Fiend, and Lipatian, were enraged as they surveyed their surroundings. There were almost no living beings in sight. It was too ruthless. Hundreds of perfected fiends were shocked and felt chills run down their spines. Although they were still alive, the 18 fiend armies and million fiends they brought were annihilated almost in the blink of an eye. This was an unimaginable blow to anyone present. Under the hell suppression tripod, Chiu Siluo took a deep breath and tried her best to compose herself. With a trembling voice, she said, It's no wonder why Sect Master the Desolate Marshal was in no hurry to attempt tribulation transcendence. He actually did such a crazy thing. Heavenly Wolf said with lingering fear as well, This guy is a pervert and can do anything. Back when the Martial Dao Prime Body decided to head to Avicii for the sake of Yin Beichun, he realized this fact. Feng Cantillon was the supreme perfected immortal after all. Although he was severely injured, he did not hide under the hell suppression tripod. Although he had been through countless storms, he was also shocked when he saw what happened earlier on. Kill him. Yin Zue hollered and attacked. If he could kill the Martial Dao Prime Body as soon as possible, the heavenly tribulation would naturally end. Hundreds of perfected fiends released their power of blood chi without holding back. In their consciousnesses, their Dao fruits shone brightly and halos appeared behind their heads. Boom, boom, boom. Hundreds of perfected fiends channeled their true essence and released divine powers and secret skills. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 1,000 sentient Dharmic treasures tore through the air and formed an impenetrable trap that enveloped down. Splash! Yin Zue coiled the blood-stained chain in his hands towards the Martial Dao Prime Body. The chain buzzed and sharp spikes popped out one after another, shimmering coldly. Fairy Purple River summoned the purple mystic in Mother-Child banner and it spread open, revealing countless ghost infants as well as the tragic and menacing faces of female ghosts. It was shuddering. Dragon Fiend growled and transformed into his half-dragon, half-human form, charging towards the Martial Dao Prime Body. Swoosh! Lipatian gripped his saber with both hands and slashed in the direction of the Martial Dao Prime Body with a deep gaze. Black chi surged with a torrential malevolent aura. The four experts on the perfected fiend ranking and hundreds of perfected fiends attacked at almost the same time, launching thunderous attacks at the Martial Dao Prime Body. They wanted to kill him instantly. Chapter 2373, 2373 Collapse of the Attack. 2373 Collapse of the Attack. Watch out! Feng Cantillon hollered and waved his startling evil spear, prepared to burn his life for a final fight. Even at his peak, he could not defend against such an attack. Furthermore, the tribulation transcendence of the sect master of Tianhuang's sect was not over yet. Roar! Suddenly, the martial Tao prime body spoke and let out a roar filled with endless might. The roar seemed to contain the cries of millions of living beings, forming a visible ripple that spread in all directions. Sound Domain's secret skill, Myriad Being Sound. After the martial Tao prime body condensed the true martial Tao body, his essence spirit and spirit body reached an even more terrifying height, and the power of the secret skill increased exponentially as well. The myriad being's sound even overwhelmed the rumbling thunder of the heavenly tribulation. The four perfected fiend experts shuddered. Yin Zue, Dragon Fiend, and Li Patian had strong physiques and bloodlines. Although they were slightly further away, they still felt that it was incomparably ear-piercing and had pained expressions. Fairy Purple River's physique and bloodline were weaker. Her body swayed and blood seeped out of her ears. If even the experts on the perfected fiend ranking suffered such a powerful blow, it was even worse for the hundreds of perfected fiends in the surroundings. At the front, dozens of perfected fiends closest to Suzimo could not withstand the terrifying impact and exploded into pieces with blood spreading everywhere. There were also dozens of perfected fiend experts with dull gazes and stiff expressions. Their heads tilted, and they fell from midair one after another. Their essence spirits were already shattered in their consciousnesses. Even with Feng Santian's experience, he was shocked. Beneath the hell suppression tripod, Gu Tongyu and the others were in disbelief. More than 100 perfected fiend experts were roared to death by the sect master of Tianhuang's sect. The remaining perfected fiends suffered quite a blow as well. Some of the perfected fiends spat out blood while others had their flesh split open, bursting forth with blood mists in a tragic sight. A single sound domain's secret skill is enough to repel hundreds of perfected fiends. Such methods, Chiu Siluo could not help but exclaim. Initially, they thought that the unprecedented battle between the Supreme Perfected Immortal and the Supreme Perfected Fiend was shocking enough and unforgettable. To think that the scene earlier on would have a huge impact on their mental states once more. Such methods had already surpassed their understanding and imagination. Up till now, the two of them had yet to realize that what they saw was only the tip of the iceberg for the martial Tao prime body. The moment the martial Tao prime body released the myriad being sound, the second strike of the first heavenly tribulation descended. There were less than 300 people in the million-strong fiend army who managed to survive the first strikes of the heavenly tribulation. But now that the second strike of the heavenly tribulation had descended, the remaining fiend cultivators could not defend against it at all and turned into ashes amidst hysterical cries. Many perfected fiend experts watched helplessly. The second strike of the heavenly tribulation posed no threat to the martial Tao prime body, Yin Zue and the others. In fact, they did not even have to bother. Splash! Yin Zue was the first to snap out of his stupor. His gigantic chain was like an anaconda that arrived instantly and coiled a few times around the martial Tao prime body before tightening. The countless sharp spikes on the chain wanted to penetrate the flesh of the martial Tao prime body and lock him up. However, no matter how Yin Zue exerted strength, the spikes could not pierce the skin of the martial Tao prime body. In fact, the sound of metal grinding could be heard and was extremely ear-piercing. A mocking look flashed through the face of the martial Tao prime body beneath the silver mask. Fairy Purple River waved the mystic in mother-child banner, and the many ghost infants and menacing female ghosts on it broke free one after another and charged towards the martial Tao prime body. However, the moment the ghost infants and menacing female ghosts arrived before the martial Tao prime body, they retreated one after another as though they were extremely shocked and did not dare to advance. No matter how Fairy Purple River channeled her secret skill, the ghost infants and female ghosts merely circled around the martial Tao prime body at most and did not dare to attack. In fact, they did not even dare to touch the corner of the clothes of the martial Tao prime body. With the help of the hell suppression tripod, the martial Tao Prime body had already gained initial control of Avicii. Avicii suppressed desolate souls and malevolent ghosts. The malevolent ghosts in Avicii were much stronger than the ghost infants refined by Fairy Purple River's evil technique. Furthermore, the martial Tao Prime body had just returned from Greater Avicii and exuded a sinister aura. Coupled with the fact that he controlled hellfire, none of those ghost-type evil beings dared to approach him. Fairy Purple River was enraged and channeled it even more intensely. As for the many ghost infants and female ghosts, they still did not dare to advance. Instead, they turned back continuously and cried shrilly at Fairy Purple River. An evil Dharmic treasure like the mystic Een Mother-Child banner would be extremely powerful if it was refined successfully. However, if one did not control it well, there was a risk of a backlash. Right now, Fairy Purple River was pushing them too far. The spirits of the mystic Een Mother-Child banner did not dare to attack the martial Tao Prime body and were already showing signs of resisting and betraying their master. Swoosh! A pitch-black and sharp saber slashed down with a suffocating aura of death. It was the Fiend saber. There was only a single person on the perfected Fiend ranking who used a saber, Lipatian. Among the perfected Fiends of the Fiend domain, Lipatian was the only one who dared to use the title of the Fiend saber. All his Dharmic Tao was condensed in this Fiend saber. Right now, he saw the martial Tao Prime body's arms bound by Yin Zue's chain. This person would definitely die if that slash landed. Crack, crack, crack. Suddenly, cracks sounded from the body of the martial Tao Prime body. Immediately after, the martial Tao Prime body struggled with both arms, and the thick chain that coiled around him shattered into a few pieces, scattering in midair. Pissed, Yin Zue's pupils constricted slightly. Although his dragon-subduing chain was not a pure young spirit treasure, it was still a 7 Tribulations spirit treasure and was indestructible. To think that someone would be able to break it with his body. How strong was the burst power required? Even the supreme perfected immortal could not do it if he was bare-handed. Piak. Suddenly, the martial Tao Prime body reached out and grabbed the incoming Fiend saber. Li Potion's expression changed starkly. His Fiend saber clearly struck the palm of the martial Tao Prime body, but it encountered immense resistance. It merely tore through the latter's flesh and left a blood scar on his palm. How was that possible? Even Yin Zue and the others were shocked, let alone Li Patian. The Fiend saber in Li Potion's hands was a 9 Tribulations pure yang spirit treasure. But now, a full-powered slash merely left a superficial wound on the other party's palm that was almost negligible. What sort of physique was it to be able to withstand a pure yang spirit treasure head-on? The gaze of the martial Tao Prime body intensified. Suddenly, he exerted strength and grabbed the blade with his palm, yanking. Li Patian could not defend against the power of the martial Tao Prime body at all, but he refused to let go of the Fiend saber either. He staggered and charged towards the latter. The martial Tao Prime body released his palm and clenched it into a fist, punching. Up till this point of his cultivation, Li Patian had faced countless strong foes and had even fought against the supreme perfected Fiend, Yin Zue, in the past. However, he had never seen such a terrifying and suffocating punch. Chapter 2374, 2374 Unstoppable, 2374 Unstoppable. That punch seemed to have sucked away all the heaven and earth essence chi in the surroundings. The space around Li Patian was suppressed to its limits. Although the punch was clearly aimed at him, he felt that he had nowhere to retreat and could only take it head-on. Li Patian did not have time to think and raised his saber horizontally in front of his chest. The moment he did that, the fist of the martial Tao Prime body descended and struck the Fiend saber. Bang! There was a loud bang. Even though there was a pure young spirit treasure between them, Li Patian could still sense the terrifying power transmitted from the Fiend saber. It was majestic and unstoppable. Poof! Li Patian shuddered and spat out blood wildly. His gaze dimmed and his life force decreased rapidly. The next moment, a series of crackling sounds came from his body, and all his bones were shattered by that single punch from the martial Tao prime body. Even his essence spirit died on the spot before it could escape. Li Patian fell backwards. When he landed on the ground, he was smashed into a meat sludge and no longer had a human form. Li Patian, who was ranked 7th on the perfected Fiend ranking, was killed by a single punch from the martial Tao prime body through his Fiend saber. The Fiends were in an uproar and were shocked. If even experts on the perfected Fiend ranking could not defend against a single punch from the sect master of Tianhuang's sect, who would dare to advance rashly? Even Yin Zue and Fairy Purple River looked wary and wanted to retreat, let alone the remaining perfected Fiends. At that moment, Dragon Fiend witnessed everything as well. However, he had already arrived before the martial Tao prime body and was extremely close. It was already too late for him to retreat. Kill. Dragon Fiend growled deeply and his clothes were torn, revealing his body that was filled with golden scales that shone with a cold glint. Clang. Clang. The hands of Dragon Fiend had already transformed completely into the claws of a divine dragon. His joints protruded and he was strong. His sharp dragon claws seemed like they could tear everything in the world apart. At the same time, Dragon Fiend's blood chi surged and a golden divine dragon appeared at the back, circling around him. The gigantic dragon head reared and looked down at the martial Tao prime body with a dignified gaze. But soon, the golden divine dragon seemed to have sensed an unusual aura from the martial Tao prime body, and a hint of fear flashed through the depths of its eyes. Bloodline phenomenon. Dragon Fiend released his full strength without holding back at all. The expression of the martial Tao prime body was unchanged. He did not dodge, avoid, or even use his blood chi. He continued punching with a simple style that was simple and direct without any fancy moves. Even without using any martial techniques, the true martial Tao body could release shocking divine power. Furthermore, the martial Tao prime body fused his Tao and Dharmic arts continuously to condense them into simplicity. He fused them into his fist techniques, and every single move he made could release the supreme will of the martial Tao. Bang! The fist and claw collided with a dull sound of defeat. Before the sharp dragon claws of Dragon Fiend could grab down, he felt a piercing pain in his palm. Ow! Dragon Fiend cried out in pain. A terrifying power surged into his palm and extended to his arm. The golden dragon scales on his arm stood on end and fell off from the sudden, tremendous power. If not for the protection of the dragon scales, his arm would have been ruptured by the single punch from the martial Tao prime body. Kill! Dragon Fiend roared and channeled the bloodline phenomenon behind him wildly, wanting the golden divine dragon to help him deal with the martial Tao prime body. However, for some unknown reason, he could not control his bloodline phenomenon this time round. The golden divine dragon let out a deep growl at the martial Tao prime body as well. However, its aura was weak and it was more like it was crying, not daring to advance. The martial Tao prime body had once fused the Dragon Phoenix true body into the martial Tao furnace and synthesized it with his flesh. He exuded the aura of a taboo dragon phoenix, and the divine dragon phenomenon did not dare to offend him at all. How noisy! The martial Tao prime body hollered and a second punch smashed down. Bang! Dragon Fiend could only extend his dragon claws to defend. Splash! This time round, the bloodline phenomenon on Dragon Fiend dissipated instantly. His blood chi fluctuated from the shock as well, and his organs shifted positions. His tendons and bones creaked as though they would fall apart the next moment. Before he could catch his breath, a third punch descended. That punch tore through the air with a shuddering aura of death. Dragon Fiend raised his arms and blocked in front of him. At the same time, he channeled his essence spirit wildly and released his essence spirit secret skill, charging towards the martial Tao prime body. He had already thrown caution to the wind after being forced to such an extent by the martial Tao prime body. The martial Tao prime body ignored the essence spirit secret skill of Dragon Fiend. Ripples appeared on the Mara mask and resolved the essence spirit secret skill with ease. The martial Tao prime body was not affected at all. The third punch arrived and burst forth. Poof! The massive body of Dragon Fiend that was 100 feet tall was shattered by a single punch. A pitch-black light escaped from the shattered body in time. It was Dragon Fiend's essence spirit. Dragon Fiend's spirit consciousness moved, and he wanted to use blood rebirth. However, there was no reaction when he channeled that supreme divine power. His essence spirit turned back with a horrified expression. His body earlier on exploded into pieces, and all the flesh that fell did not have any signs of life, completely shrouded by the aura of death. The third punch of the martial Tao prime body destroyed all the life in his body. Crack! A scarlet thunderbolt descended and struck his essence spirit. Dragon Fiend's essence spirit shuddered and gradually turned transparent as its life force deteriorated. With the protection of his body, the first strike of the heavenly tribulation naturally posed no threat to him. However, there was no way an essence spirit could go against the heavenly tribulation lightning. On the spot, its life force was destroyed and its soul dispersed. The martial Tao prime body attacked consecutively and killed 2 perfected fiends on the perfected fiend ranking in the blink of an eye in an unstoppable manner. At that moment, it was only the 4th strike of the first heavenly tribulation. The perfected 1 heavenly tribulation had at least 6 cycles of 9 strikes each. That would be known as the 6 of 9 heavenly tribulation. With each cycle, the power would naturally increase as well. Let's retreat first. There's no hurry. Yin Zue sent a voice transmission. This person underwent tribulation transcendence in the million-strong fiend army, and the power of the heavenly tribulation has increased exponentially. Once the tribulation transcendence is over, even if he doesn't die, he will be severely injured. At that time, it'll be extremely easy for us to kill him. Fairy Purple River nodded to herself and replied, "That's right." The figures of the 2 perfected fiends retreated at an extremely fast speed as their spirit consciousnesses conversed. Now that the million-strong fiend army was reduced to ashes, the tribulation clouds above the head of the martial Tao prime body shrank rapidly and returned to normal. Given Yin Zue and Fairy Purple River's movement techniques, they left the range of the tribulation clouds before long. Trying to leave. The martial Tao prime body sneered, "It's not that easy." In a flash, he charged towards Yin Zue and Fairy Purple River and said coldly, "The 2 of you, stay and accompany me through the tribulation transcendence." Naturally, Yin Zue and Fairy Purple River would not stop in their tracks foolishly. At the same time, Yin Zue sent a voice transmission to the 300-odd perfected fiend experts on the other side. Wrap around and attack quickly. Kill the people beneath the bronze square tripod and snatch it over. Chapter 2375. 2375 True, Martial Heavenly Tribulation. 2375 True, Martial Heavenly Tribulation. On the one hand, the martial Tao prime body took out the hell suppression tripod to protect Yin Beichin and the others. On the other hand, it was also for the hell suppression tripod to undergo the baptism and refinement of the heavenly tribulation. After the hell suppression tripod was severely injured, its cultivation realm fell. Although the cracks on the tripod recovered after devouring a large number of spirit treasures, in reality, the hell suppression tripod had not recovered to become a true sentient Dharmic treasure. The tribulation transcendence this time round was the best opportunity for the hell suppression tripod to recover. The heavenly tribulation descended, and the hell suppression tripod was bathed in lightning. The 4 sacred souls on the 4 walls that had initially fallen asleep after suffering immense losses due to the battle woke up once more and opened their eyes in extreme excitement. There was no way they could recover to their peak just by devouring spirit treasures. The current heavenly tribulation was the key for them to absorb energy and recover to their peak. The hell suppression tripod hovered in midair and absorbed the power of the descending heavenly tribulation completely. The auras of the 4 sacred souls rose as well. As for Yin Beichin and the others, they hid beneath the hell suppression tripod and were not damaged by the lightning at all. But now, the situation had suddenly changed. The martial Dao Prime Body chased after Yin Zue and Fairy Purple River, while the remaining 300-odd perfected Fiend experts changed their targets and charged towards Yin Beichen and the others. Die! The startling evil spear in Feng Santian's hands slashed horizontally and raised, piercing the chest of a perfected Fiend instantly. Before that person's essence spirit could escape, the power of thunder that burst forth from the startling evil spear destroyed his consciousness. That person's essence spirit was destroyed and he died on the spot. However, Feng Cantian was severely injured and was at the end of his rope with not much combat strength left. Standing in midair alone, he could not split himself to defend against all the perfected Fiend experts. Some perfected Fiends circled around him and charged towards the Hell Suppression tripod. In the blink of an eye, dozens of perfected Fiend experts arrived before the Hell Suppression tripod. Someone laughed sinisterly. Die, ants. Poof! The moment that person said that, his head was shattered by a single punch, and he died on the spot. He could give up on Yin Zue and Fairy Purple River for the time being, but he could not allow Yin Beichen and the others to get hurt. After the martial Dao Prime Body descended, he lunged into the crowd and charged left and right. He was a killing weapon in human form. There was no perfected Fiend that could stop the martial Dao Prime Body in his tracks. Be it divine powers, secret skills, Dharmic treasures, or talismans, none of them could defend against a casual punch from the martial Dao Prime Body. As long as the martial Dao Prime Body attacked, a perfected Fiend would definitely die. In just a few breaths, dozens of perfected Fiend experts were killed by the martial Dao Prime Body near the Hell Suppression tripod, and none of them escaped. The remaining perfected Fiends who were still fighting Feng Cantian dispersed in fear and hid far away, not daring to advance. At that moment, the first heavenly tribulation was almost over. Right from the beginning, the martial Dao Prime Body ignored the heavenly tribulation above his head and merely allowed the thunderbolts to strike his body. The true martial Dao Body absorbed everything. It was the same for Feng Cantian. The lightning that descended from the heavenly tribulation was extremely damaging to others. However, it was a great tonic for him. After the first heavenly tribulation ended, his injuries began to heal. The martial Dao Prime Body stood near the Hell Suppression tripod and looked at Yin Zue, Fairy Purple River, and the others in the distance. He did not take the initiative to attack. Actually, given his capabilities, if he did not hold back at all, he might be able to kill all 4 experts on the perfected Fiend ranking the moment they met. Karmic Flames, Hellfire, Bloodline Phenomenon. If all of those trump cards were released, not many of the hundreds of perfected Fiends present would be able to leave alive, including the Supreme Perfected Fiend, Yin Zue. The reason why the martial Dao Prime Body did not release those methods was not because he wanted to hide. Actually, to him, the Supreme Perfected Fiend and the others were not much of a threat. His true threat was the heavenly tribulation this time round. His Dharmic Dao was different from the cultivation of all living beings of the upper world. He created his own Dao and established the true martial realm to create the true martial Dao Body. To be precise, the heavenly tribulation he welcomed was an unprecedented true martial heavenly tribulation. Nobody knew how terrifying the heavenly tribulation this time round would be. Furthermore, he was undergoing the tribulation transcendence in the million-strong Fiend army, adding another uncertain factor to the tribulation transcendence this time round. The power of the heavenly tribulation originated from the unknown in the depths of the heavens. There was a high chance that it was from the major Kiliacosm. The martial Dao Prime Body did not dare to be careless against such unknowns. If he released many of his trump cards to deal with Yin Zue, Fairy Purple River, and the others, he would not be able to defend against any changes top might happen next. With the martial Dao Prime Body standing guard around the Hell Suppression tripod, Yin Zue, Fairy Purple River, and the other perfected Fiends did not dare to advance rashly either. However, none of them were willing to leave just like that. Many people had the same thought. They were waiting for the martial Dao Prime Body's tribulation transcendence to end. Even if he could succeed in the tribulation transcendence, the sect master of Tianhuang's sect would definitely be extremely weak. That would be the best opportunity for them to attack. Before long, the second heavenly tribulation descended. Yellow lightning descended continuously and struck the martial Tao prime body and Feng Cantillon heavily. Both of them were unmoved and bathed in lightning. The color of the heavenly tribulations would deepen increasingly. By the ninth heavenly tribulation, it would transform into a golden color and shine with a blinding golden light that could tear through the world with a terrifying might. Bang! Bang! Even so, the martial Tao prime body and Feng Cantillon did not retreat. The martial Tao prime body attracted the heavenly tribulation into his body and strengthened the tribulation fire, tempering his body, bloodline, tendons, bones, and organs, and perfecting the true martial Tao body. As for Feng Cantillon, he made use of the power of thunder to repair his injuries. At the same time, he comprehended the Tao and Dharmic arts contained in the heavenly tribulation thunder. This heavenly tribulation was not only extremely important to the martial Tao prime body, it was also a huge opportunity for him. Feng Cantillon's heart skipped a beat as a thought flashed through his mind. What if Desolate Marshal came here to attempt tribulation transcendence not only because he wanted to deal with the million-strong Fiend army? Given his capabilities, even without the power of the heavenly tribulation, which of the Fiends present was his match? Given his combat strength, he was invincible and unstoppable. Desolate Marshal might have come here to undergo tribulation transcendence because he wanted to grant Feng Cantillon an opportunity. Feng Cantillon looked at the hell suppression tripod not far away. There was still a huge question in his heart that he could not resolve right away. Logically speaking, this ancient emperor weapon should be in the hands of the divine firmament immortal domains Suzimo. How could it be in the hands of Desolate Marshal? Furthermore, he recalled something. The name Desolate Marshal seemed to have been mentioned by Suzimo once in the 10 Absolute Hell. In fact, Feng Cantillon even wondered if Desolate Marshal was Suzimo. However, on second thought, he quickly denied that speculation. Firstly, their methods, Dharmic Tao and aura, everything was worlds apart. Secondly, when the two of them parted ways back then, Suzimo had just entered the Earth immortal realm. It was impossible for Suzimo to cultivate to this realm or even be comparable to him after thousands of years. I hope that Desolate Marshal did not snatch the hell suppression tripod from Suzimo's hands. Feng Cantillon thought to himself. Chapter 2376, 2376 Fight. 2376 Fight. The tribulation clouds were thick, and the second heavenly tribulation had just ended when the color of the lightning changed. Crack! The third round of green lightning descended and tore through the world. It was even more powerful and shocking. The martial Tao prime body stood in midair motionlessly and bathed in lightning, making use of the baptism of the heavenly tribulation's lightning to temper his body. Although it seemed simple for the martial Tao prime body to undergo tribulation transcendence, Gu Tongyu and the others who were hiding beneath the hell suppression tripod knew how terrifying the heavenly tribulation was. One after another, thunderbolts struck the hell suppression tripod and let out a blinding light as electric arcs danced in midair. If not for the hell suppression tripod defending, they would have been blasted into pieces a long time ago. What's the background of this person? He's undergoing the perfected one heavenly tribulation without any Dharmic arts or divine powers. He's merely enduring everything with his body and bloodline? This person's physique is too strong and his burst power is ferocious. Even the Fiend saber, Li Patian, was killed by a single punch. The remaining 200-odd perfected fiends hid outside the range of the heavenly tribulation. When they saw that, they discussed with wary expressions. Brother Yin, can you tell what is the Dharmic Tao and legacy of his bloodline and physique? Fairy Purple River asked with a frown. Yin Zue had a dark expression and remained silent. Fairy Purple River said, from what I know, only a few races like the dragon and god race that are born with supreme physiques and bloodlines will choose to undergo tribulation transcendence with their physical bodies. When Yin Zue heard that, he harumphed coldly. There's no hurry. Let's see how much longer he can last. Even for the dragon and god race, for the fifth and sixth heavenly tribulations, they have to summon their Dharmic treasure weapons and release many divine powers and secret skills to defend against it. I don't believe that this person can survive the 6 of 9 heavenly tribulation with his body alone. Before long, the third heavenly tribulation ended. Immediately after, blue lightning flashed in the tribulation clouds and gradually formed a blue sea of lightning above the heads of the martial Dao prime body and Feng Cantillon. Splash! The water poured down like a galactic river with a terrifying might and drowned the figures of the martial Dao prime body and Feng Cantillon instantly. After a while, when the sea of lightning faded, the figures of the martial Dao prime body and Feng Cantillon reappeared. Boom! 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 The fifth heavenly tribulation descended and purple thunderbolts descended from the skies with endless might, striking the martial Dao prime body continuously. Each time they descended, a deafening bang would echo. Throughout the entire process, the martial Dao prime body did not even move a single finger. Before long, the fifth heavenly tribulation was over and the sixth heavenly tribulation was ready to strike. The gray lightning contained an aura of death that seemed like it could kill all living beings. Boom, boom, boom. Gray thunderbolts descended one after another and struck the martial Dao prime body. As the number of times stacked, the gray thunderbolts became thicker and more shocking. Initially, they were only as thick as adult arms. Later on, they were the size of divine pillars that were coiled with lightning as they smashed down continuously. The martial Dao prime body was still motionless. By the looks of it, the 6 of 9 heavenly tribulation is definitely not the end point. There will definitely be more heavenly tribulations condensing later on. Given this person's methods, I wonder how many heavenly tribulations he will attract in the end. Could it be the legendary 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation? The fiends were shocked when they heard the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation. Someone shouted softly, "Don't talk nonsense." Anyone who can attract the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation is someone with the potential of a great emperor. There hasn't been one in a million years. That's right. Even as the supreme perfected fiend, Yin Zue only attracted the 8 of 9 heavenly tribulation back then. This person's combat strength seems to be superior to Yin Zue. Just as everyone was discussing, the 7th heavenly tribulation had already descended. The color of the 7 of 9 heavenly tribulation turned darker. The previous heavenly tribulation was gray. As for the first strike of the 7 of 9 heavenly tribulation, it was black and incomparably violent, descending from the skies like a curved black spear. The black thunderbolt seemed to have sliced the world into two. This time round, the martial Dao prime body finally moved. He raised his head slightly and extended a finger, tapping towards the descending black thunderbolt. Boom! The black thunderbolt collided with the finger of the martial Dao prime body and exploded instantly in a deafening manner. The martial Dao prime body was unmoved and was not injured at all. When Yin Zue saw that, his mouth twitched uncontrollably. Even though it was already the 7 of 9 heavenly tribulation, the sect master of Tianhuang's sect did not use any Dharmic treasures or divine powers. He merely extended a finger and destroyed the heavenly tribulation. Back when he fought against the 7 of 9 heavenly tribulation, he released many trump cards and was almost at the limits of his body. However, the tribulation transcendence seemed way too easy for this desolate martial. Yin Zue felt an inexplicable sense of frustration. However, he composed himself before long. That was because he knew that the power of the perfected one heavenly tribulation would increase towards the end. Notwithstanding the difference between the 7 of 9 heavenly tribulation and the 8 of 9 heavenly tribulation, even the might of each strike of heavenly tribulation would increase exponentially when it descended. Boom, boom, boom. The martial Dao prime body stood in midair and raised his head slightly. Against the impact of the heavenly tribulation, he merely raised his hand casually as though he was chasing away mosquitoes. The powerful heavenly tribulations dissipated one after another and were shattered by the martial Dao prime body casually without causing him any damage. A perfected Fiend expert was unwilling to believe this scene and felt that something was amiss. He made up his mind and decided to test the waters. In a flash, the person approached the martial Dao prime body rapidly and entered the range of the tribulation clouds in the blink of an eye. Crack! A pitch-black thunderbolt descended and arrived instantly. How strong! It was only when he personally experienced the heavenly tribulation did he know how terrifying it was. The person's expression changed starkly. Thankfully, he was long prepared and summoned his spirit treasure hurriedly, injecting true essence above his head to defend. At the same time, the person circulated his divine powers and secret skills and attacked the heavenly tribulation. Boom! The pitch-black lightning descended and pierced the person's spirit treasure almost instantly, destroying his divine powers and secret skills. The perfected Fiend shuddered and spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body was pierced by the pitch-black thunderbolt, revealing a shocking charred hole of blood. Countless destructive power of thunder swept through his body and destroyed his life force in the blink of an eye. Thankfully, this person saw that the situation was bad, and his essence spirit left his body with the Dao fruit wrapped around it. He escaped from the range of the tribulation clouds and escaped death, avoiding a calamity. Even so, it was difficult to make up for the losses that this person suffered. His body was completely destroyed by the 7 of 9 heavenly tribulation and his life force was severed. He could not even use blood rebirth. In the eyes of the fiends, this scene made them even more wary. The fiends retreated once more and no one dared to advance rashly. Before long, the 7 of 9 heavenly tribulation ended, but the tribulation clouds did not dissipate. The 8 of 9 heavenly tribulation was about to arrive. The martial Dao prime body took a deep breath and looked up at the firmaments. Instead of retreating, he advanced and soared into the skies against the descending heavenly tribulation. The martial Dao prime body wanted to face the heavenly tribulation head-on, not defend passively. Chapter 2377, 2377-9 of 9 Heavenly Tribulation. 2377-9 of 9 Heavenly Tribulation. The fiends were shocked as they looked at the martial Dao prime body who soared into the air to receive the heavenly tribulation. Challenging the heavenly tribulation head-on was akin to challenging the heavens. The unknown will at the origin of the heavenly tribulation and the laws of heaven and earth. This was the martial Dao. This was the will of the martial Dao. Unyielding, resisting, fighting against heaven and earth, and exacting revenge and repaying gratitude as one pleased. The color of the 8th heavenly tribulation was no longer dark. At their limits, things reverse instead. The extreme of the black heavenly tribulation had already transformed into a milky white color after evolving. Boom! The martial Dao prime body soared into the skies and raised his fist, punching heavily against the descending milky white thunderbolt, causing the world to tremble. The figure of the martial Dao prime body shuddered slightly and paused as well. Since the beginning of the tribulation transcendence this time round, this was the first time the martial Dao prime body was affected. However, it was almost negligible. The figure of the martial Dao prime body continued to climb. The second strike of the heavenly tribulation descended extremely quickly, as though it could sense the provocation of the martial Dao prime body and wanted to shoot him down. The martial Dao prime body punched out once more to fight head-on. Boom! There was a loud bang. This time round, the figure of the martial Dao prime body was unaffected as he broke through the thunderbolt and charged up against the tides. As though it could sense the aura of the martial Dao prime body, the hell suppression tripod on the other side vibrated continuously as well. Sanskrit reverberated within the tripod while the roars of dragons, tigers, turtles, and phoenixes could be heard outside. After absorbing the power of 7 heavenly tribulations, the auras of the 4 sacred souls had clearly broken through from the peak of the heaven immortal realm to the perfected one realm. The hell suppression tripod was sentient and charged into the firmaments against the electric arcs as well. At the same time, the hell suppression tripod shone with rays of light that formed a barrier around Yin Beichen and the others like a waterfall, continuing to protect them. right in front of everyone. The man and tripod rose continuously against the will of the heavenly tribulation and the might of thunder. Boom, boom, boom. By the time the ninth strike of the heavenly tribulation descended, the figure of the martial Tao prime body had already charged into the tribulation clouds and charged forward. He attacked consecutively and shattered the surrounding tribulation clouds. The fiends were dumbfounded in shock. Even the supreme perfected fiend, Yinzue, and Fairy Purple River, who was ranked 4th on the perfected fiend ranking, were shocked. The tribulation transcendence method of this sect master of Tianhuang's sect had completely exceeded their imagination. He charged into the tribulation clouds alone and stirred the sea of lightning, almost overturning the entire firmament. He crushed the 8 of 9 heavenly tribulation with his body alone. Amazing! Even Feng Cantian could not help but praise. Back then, he was the supreme perfected immortal of the 9 firmament immortal domain. However, when he entered the perfected 1 realm, he only attracted the 8 of 9 heavenly tribulation as well. The process of him crossing the 8 of 9 heavenly tribulation was unusually dangerous. After it was over, he was only left with a single breath. Thankfully, he was protected by an expert and could recover slowly. However, the perfected fiend desolate marshal before him had a torrential aura. Against the heavenly tribulation, he counterattacked and dispersed the tribulation clouds, crushing the lightning. Even Feng Cantian could not compare to such extraordinary methods. Yinzue looked up at the firmaments in silence and deep thought. As for the fiends, they had frightened expressions and were already thinking of retreating. Brother Yin, let's retreat? Fairy Purple River frowned. This person's tribulation transcendence ended, and he's not injured at all. Instead, his aura is even stronger. We can't defeat him even if we join forces. Yinzue shook his head gently. The heavenly tribulation is not over yet. The expressions of Fairy Purple River and the others changed. The fact that things were not over after the 8 of 9 heavenly tribulation meant that the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation was about to descend. This was the epitome of the perfected 1 heavenly tribulation. For the past 1,000,000 years, at least in the heavenly world, there had never been anyone who attracted the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation. If there was truly the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation, there was no need for the fiends to be in a hurry to leave. Firstly, the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation was unprecedented. If they could witness it personally, it would be an opportunity for everyone present. Secondly, the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation was an extreme heavenly tribulation that could destroy everything, notwithstanding whether the sect master of Tianhuang sect could survive. Even if he could survive, he would definitely be severely injured and fall into an extremely weak state. This was a good opportunity for them to attack. Anyone who could attract the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation definitely had the potential to become a great emperor. All of them felt an inexplicable sense of excitement at the thought that they could kill such a monster incarnate in advance. In the skies, the tribulation clouds that were dispersed by the martial Tao prime body gathered once more and turned thicker, emitting a shuddering might. Fu. Yinzue could not help but laugh and say smugly, he truly planned everything. This person lured the heavenly tribulation to destroy my 1,000,000-strong fiend army. However, he did not expect that his actions would also land him in a dangerous situation with nowhere to retreat. If he is killed by the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation, it would be fate. If he is lucky enough to survive the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation, we'll attack and send him on his way. All right. The fiends were excited and agreed loudly. Feng Cantian had a grim expression as he wielded the startling evil spear and looked up at the firmaments. Even he had not seen the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation before and did not know how terrifying the legendary extreme heavenly tribulation would be. Boom! The first strike of the 9th heavenly tribulation descended. The martial Tao prime body received the attack with a clenched fist. Boom! A figure fell rapidly from the firmaments to the ground, creating a huge pit. The first strike of the heavenly tribulation was even more ferocious and terrifying than all the previous heavenly tribulations combined, smashing the martial Tao prime body down. The martial Tao prime body shrugged his arm gently. Up till this point of the tribulation transcendence, this was the first time he felt a numbing sensation on his fist and arm with a slight burning pain. Boom! The second strike of the heavenly tribulation followed closely behind. The martial Tao prime body took a deep breath and used his fists to receive the heavenly tribulation. Bang! The figure of the martial Tao prime body shrank, and he was smashed into the ground by the power of the heavenly tribulation. He could already feel his chest turning stuffy as well as discomfort within his body. Before he could catch his breath, the third strike of the heavenly tribulation had already descended. This time round, the martial Tao prime body channeled his blood chi and his aura surged. He broke free from the ground and welcomed the attack once more. Boom! The martial Tao prime body was smashed down once more. However, his blood chi circled around him and he emitted an incomparably powerful life force. He was still completely unharmed. After the 3 strikes of the heavenly tribulation ended, the 4th strike of the heavenly tribulation did not descend for a long time. The tribulation clouds in the skies did not disperse either. Watch out, your bloodline. Right then, Feng Santian's voice sounded. The martial Tao prime body's heart skipped a beat. Indeed, unknowingly, a mysterious power had entered his bloodline and was destroying his life force continuously. The 4th strike of the 9 of 9, heavenly tribulation, was the bloodline tribulation. Unlike the heavenly tribulations earlier on, the power of this heavenly tribulation would appear silently in the body of someone undergoing tribulation transcendence. If the person undergoing tribulation transcendence was careless and did not notice it in time, his bloodline might dry up and it would be difficult for him to recover. Humph! The martial Tao prime body sneered and channeled his blood chi with all his might. The sound of raging tides crashing onto shore echoed endlessly from his body. His bloodline contained a scorching heat that was like lava. If it was channeled with all its might, it could smelt everything. The power of the heavenly tribulation did not exist for long in the body of the martial Tao prime body. Before long, it would be devoured and refined by the bloodline of the martial Tao prime body and washed clean. Chapter 2378, 2378 Peerless Divine Power. 2378 Peerless Divine Power. After the bloodline tribulation, 2 consecutive heavenly tribulations descended into the body of the martial Tao prime body silently without any form. Essence Spirit Tribulation. This type of heavenly tribulation could ignore the defense of the Mara mask completely and appear sinisterly in his consciousness. The martial Tao prime body reacted extremely quickly and channeled his Essence Spirit secret skill to defend. A moment later, the Essence Spirit Tribulation dissipated. After that was the Tao Heart Tribulation. This type of heavenly tribulation affected the cultivator's Tao Heart. If one's Tao Heart was weak, they would definitely develop mental demons under the effect of the heavenly tribulation. However, the Tao Heart Tribulation had no effect on the martial Tao prime body at all. He had once condensed the 10th stone step of the Tao Heart stairs, and his Tao Heart was indestructible. Even the Tao Heart Tribulation of the 9 of 9, heavenly tribulation, could not shake it. After the 3 silent and invisible heavenly tribulations ended, the tribulation clouds changed once more. Pausing for a moment, a spark suddenly fell from the middle of the tribulation clouds. Phew! When the spark landed on the martial Tao prime body, a raging fire ignited and spread continuously, forming a column of flames that connected heaven and earth with raging flames. The 7th strike of the heavenly tribulation, the karma tribulation. No matter who or what living being it was, they were tainted by karma the moment they were born. As time passed by and they grew, they would accumulate even more karma. There were both positive and negative karmas. As for the heavenly tribulation, it ignited all the karma on the martial Tao prime body and burned him continuously. The martial Tao prime body's column of flames that connected heaven and earth stood upright and unmoved, as though he could not feel any pain or torture. That was because the flames were nothing compared to the pain caused by the hellfire in Greater Avicii. Karmic flames were the only things in the world that could ignite karma. While the karmic flames burned the karma, they were also tempering his flesh. Right in front of everyone, the martial Dao prime body roared into the skies. His entire body seemed to have transformed into a bottomless abyss as he absorbed and devoured the karmic flames that connected heaven and earth continuously. Strange and tragic red lotus flowers surrounded the martial Dao prime body, revealing a demonic beauty. The martial Dao prime body stepped on the red lotus karmic fire, and his body rose continuously. The seventh strike of the ninth heavenly tribulation shook the martial Dao prime body as well. The fiends were shocked and their hearts skipped a beat. Even Feng Cantillon at the side suffered a huge blow from the karma tribulation. He was almost burned into charcoal and looked wretched. His skin cracked and his bloodline flowed, forming red lotus flowers on the ground. After the seventh strike ended, the eighth strike descended. Clang, clang, shua, shua, shua. Different divine weapons descended from the thick tribulation clouds and charged towards the martial Dao prime body, Feng Cantillon, and the hell suppression tripod. Weapon tribulation. There were all sorts of divine weapons, Dharmic treasures, sabers, spears, swords, halberds, axes, hooks, forks. There were also gigantic tripods, ancient bells, bronze furnaces, and strange weapons such as horsetail whips, treasure mirrors, and long darts. When these weapons appeared with the power of the heavenly tribulation, their might had already reached the level of 9 tribulations' pure yang spirit treasures. They rained down densely and blanketed the skies. Haha, good timing. Feng Cantillon burst into laughter and waved his startling evil spear, soaring into the skies in a heroic manner. The simplest way to survive the weapon tribulation was naturally to use divine weapons and Dharmic treasures to fight like Feng Cantillon. However, at that moment, the hell suppression tripod was still guarding above Yin Beichin and the others and could not leave. Against the pure yang spirit treasures that blanketed the skies, the martial Dao prime body did not dodge or avoid and charged forward. Boom, boom, boom. The martial Dao prime body waved his fists and attacked continuously. With his body, he fought head-on against the descending pure yang spirit treasures and let out a deafening bang. The fiends winced at the sight of that. Although the pure yang spirit treasures were incorporeal, they were transformed from the power of the heavenly tribulation. Yet, this person could take them head-on with his body. Of course, after the consecutive clashes, the fists of the martial Dao prime body were stained with blood and wounds appeared on his body. However, those injuries were almost negligible for the true martial Dao body. He could recover instantly. Finally, the divine weapons in the skies gradually thinned and dissipated. The weapon tribulation was over. Of the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation, there was only the final heavenly tribulation left. Far away, Fairy Purple River shook her head with a grim expression. Brother Yin, let's retreat. From the looks of it, even the final heavenly tribulation won't be able to severely injure him. No. Yin Zue had a calm expression. It's not so easy to defend against the final heavenly tribulation. Even if he can survive it, he'll lose half his life. Brother Yin, are you that confident? Fairy Purple River asked with a frown. Yin Zue did not reply and asked instead, do you know what's the final tribulation of the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation? Fairy Purple River said, I don't know. Brother Yin, please enlighten me. The final one is the divine power tribulation. Yin Zue said indifferently. Fairy Purple River still could not understand. Up till now, this person has not used any divine powers or secret skills. Even the divine power tribulation will most likely return fruitless. Fufu. Yin Zue smiled and asked again, do you know how the first peerless divine power of the trichiliocosm was spread? I'm not sure. Fairy Purple River shook her head and probed. Someone with extraordinary talent created it and passed it down? Impossible. Yin Zue said, peerless divine powers touch on the core profoundness of Dharmic Daos. It's almost impossible to comprehend a peerless divine power, let alone create one personally. That was not an exaggeration. Yin Zue was known as the Supreme Perfected Fiend and had the chance to come into contact with a peerless divine power. However, he could not comprehend it at all. Impossible to create personally? Fairy Purple River's heart skipped a beat as she understood what Yin Zue was implying. You mean to say that the final tribulation of the 9 of 9, heavenly tribulation, is a peerless divine power? That's right. Yin Zue nodded and said, peerless divine powers are extremely rare. The peerless divine powers that have been passed down till now were all passed down by the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation. Fairy Purple River was not the only one. Even the fiends were shocked when they heard that. Peerless divine powers were the epitome of divine powers. It was no exaggeration to say that if a perfected immortal could comprehend a peerless divine power, he could be invincible in the perfected one realm and obtain the title of a supreme perfected immortal. In fact, he could advance a step further and become the number 1 perfected immortal of the heavenly world. Yin Zue said, that's why we have to watch him tide through this final tribulation here no matter what. Not everyone has the chance to witness a peerless divine power. This is also a huge opportunity for us. How much you can comprehend from the descent of this peerless divine power will depend on your own potential. Fairy Purple River asked, which peerless divine power will descend this time round? I'm not sure about that. Yin Zue shook his head gently. There aren't many peerless divine powers throughout history. The ones I know are eternal night, astral imprisonment, 6 paths of reincarnation, and so on. It's possible for any of those to descend. Or perhaps it might be a peerless divine power that has never appeared before. Chapter 2379, 2379 Eternal Damnation. 2379 Eternal Damnation. After the 8th strike of the heavenly tribulation ended, the 9th strike did not appear for a long time. The tribulation clouds in the firmaments had yet to disperse, as though they were accumulating their final strength and could explode at any moment. Fellow Daoist, a peerless divine power should descend in this final tribulation. You must not be careless. Feng Cantillon reminded, don't forget to comprehend the obscurities within while resisting. Once that peerless divine power descended, the martial Dao prime body and Feng Cantillon would naturally comprehend more than the surrounding people. Peerless divine power. The eyes of the martial Dao prime body lit up. Relying on the true martial Dao body, he rarely used divine powers or secret skills in combat. As long as he charged forward, no one would be able to stop him. Even after obtaining many divine powers and secret skills, the martial Dao prime body rarely cultivated them and merely fused them into the martial Dao furnace to obtain their essences. However, it was different for peerless divine powers. If he could comprehend a peerless divine power, his combat strength would increase immensely. The might of the tribulation clouds intensified. Finally, the power in the tribulation clouds had already accumulated to its peak and burst forth. The lightning descended and formed a tsunami that surged over. There were also many different powers of the heavenly tribulation mixed in the lightning tide. Some of them were flames, some of them were howling cyclones, and some of them were divine weapons. There were also many heavenly tribulations that transformed into various runes that descended densely. There were 81 strikes in the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation. There was the formation tribulation, residency tribulation, destruction tribulation, and emptiness tribulation, where 20 minor tribulations were contained in each of them. There was the fire tribulation, water tribulation, wind tribulation, weapon tribulation. There was the incremental tribulation, reduction tribulation, flora tribulation, sand tribulation, mustard seed tribulation, dust tribulation, stone tribulation. There was the ethereal tribulation, awakening tribulation, consolidation tribulation, mystic tribulation, virtuous tribulation, astral tribulation. In the vision of the martial Dao prime body, thousands of heavenly tribulations surged over. Every single heavenly tribulation was different. The power contained in every single heavenly tribulation was incomparably terrifying. Most of the runes conjured by the heavenly tribulation were foreign to the martial Dao prime body and he had never even heard of them before. Peerless divine power, eternal damnation. Feng Cantillon was shocked and exclaimed, "Ha ha ha ha." On the other side, Yin Zue could not help but burst into laughter when he saw that. The heavens are truly on my side. To think that it would be eternal damnation. Desolate Marshal will definitely die today. Is that peerless divine power that powerful? Fairy Purple River asked. Yin Zue smiled. First, there are 10,000 heavenly tribulations in eternal damnation. Even the person undergoing the tribulation transcendence won't be able to comprehend all the heavenly tribulations that descend at the same time. That's because this peerless divine power can only be released after one comprehends all the heavenly tribulations. However, no one can comprehend all the heavenly tribulations during this short tribulation transcendence process. Fairy Purple River and the others nodded and looked at the dense tribulation runes in the distance, giving up on comprehending them. Yin Zue said, "Second, the meaning of damnation in the name of this peerless divine power means that no recovery is possible. Even if Desolate Marshal can survive it, his injuries will never recover as long as he's injured by eternal damnation." Pissed, the fiends gasped. Yin Zue chuckled. Of course, if he can break through to the Grotto-heaven realm and open up his Grotto-heaven, he'll naturally be able to dispel the power of eternal damnation. Yin Zue did not continue, but everyone knew that it was impossible. Desolate Marshal was only undergoing the tribulation transcendence now. How long more would it take for him to advance to the Grotto-heaven realm? With this battered body, it was unknown if his cultivation could even advance in the future, let alone advance to the Grotto-heaven realm. As Yin Zue and the others discussed, eternal damnation descended. Looking at the dense tribulation runes above his head, the gaze of the martial Dao Prime body intensified, and he channeled his blood qi to its limits. Instantly, his figure seemed to have vanished. In its place was a gigantic furnace burning with raging flames. The bloodline phenomenon of the martial Dao Prime body, heaven and earth furnace. Back then, before he entered the true martial realm, the power of the heaven and earth furnace could not be released completely. Therefore, he could only kill fiend cultivators at the convergence realm of the perfected one realm. But now, the martial Dao Prime body had advanced and created the true martial Dao body, causing his power of blood to increase exponentially. The power of his bloodline phenomenon had also increased by a huge level and had completely transformed into a peerless divine power. Since the final heavenly tribulation sent down a peerless divine power, the martial Dao Prime body would use the peerless divine power he created to defend. Yin Zue was right. In the short tribulation transcendence process, there was no way he could comprehend all the heavenly tribulations. However, he could make use of the heaven and earth furnace to smelt and absorb all the 10,000 heavenly tribulations. When he was in seclusion, he could comprehend the profoundness within bit by bit. Heaven and earth will be the furnace and creation will be the process. Yin and yang will be charcoal and all living beings will be bronze. The voice of the martial Dao Prime body sounded from the heaven and earth furnace. Right in front of everyone, the 10,000 heavenly tribulations surged into the heaven and earth furnace. Phew! 5 flames rose around the heaven and earth furnace. The martial spirit fire, dragon phoenix flames, tribulation fire, red lotus karmic fire, and hellfire. The augmentation of the 5 flames caused the power of the heaven and earth furnace to increase exponentially. The entire furnace was burned red and almost transparent. One could vaguely see that there were thousands of tribulation runes charging everywhere within, but there was nowhere to hide. This was not only the martial Dao Prime body undergoing tribulation transcendence. This was also a fight between 2 peerless divine powers. A moment later, the tribulation runes could not break free and suddenly gathered together, transforming into a scarlet beam of light. Clang! The scarlet light struck the heaven and earth furnace heavily and it shuddered. The light dissipated and the figure of the martial Dao Prime body appeared as well. The 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation was finally over. With the help of the heaven and earth furnace, The martial Tao prime body absorbed and refined eternal damnation almost perfectly and was only waiting to comprehend it in seclusion. On the other side, Feng Santian's situation was much more dangerous. After all, he had fought consecutively with Yin Zue and the others and was severely injured. Although he endured the baptism of the heavenly tribulations, his injuries had yet to heal and his combat strength had not recovered to its peak. He was already struggling to defend against the tribulation runes of eternal damnation. Finally, the tribulations turned into a scarlet light that slashed towards Feng Cantillon. Even with his startling evil spear, Feng Cantillon was still too weak to take it head-on and the spear flew from his hands. The scarlet light surged in and pierced Feng Santian's chest instantly, leaving a hole the size of a bowl. Poof! A fountain of blood gushed out. Under normal circumstances, such injuries were nothing to a perfected immortal. However, no matter how Feng Cantillon channeled his essence spirit, the hole in his chest could not heal and bled endlessly. Among the 10,000 heavenly tribulations, there was the heavenly tribulation, mental demon tribulation, weapon tribulation, formation tribulation, residency tribulation, destruction tribulation, emptiness tribulation. There was a myriad of complex powers and tribulations all accumulated on Feng Santian's wound. How could it heal? This was the terror of eternal damnation. Although he managed to defend against it, he could not recover from any injuries. Chapter 2380, 2380 10th Tribulation. 2380 10th Tribulation. Brother Yin, hurry and leave. When Fairy Purple River saw that, she reminded hurriedly, even the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation can't injure this person. We're definitely not his match. If we don't leave, something might happen. That's right. I'm afraid only a Grotto-heaven expert can kill this person. Another perfected fiend said. Although the fiends had never seen a paragon who could attract the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation in real life, they had heard of such people in legends and ancient books before. However, this was the first time the fiends had seen a monster incarnate who was almost completely unharmed after the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation. This was beyond their understanding. If he could even withstand a peerless divine power, what was the background of this person? The fiends were in no mood to fight and wanted to leave as soon as possible. Yin Zue's expression was terrible. This time round, he gathered 18 fiend armies and 1,000,000 cultivators. However, they were turned into ashes by this sect master of Tianhuang, sect who appeared out of nowhere and triggered the heavenly tribulations. Although he was indignant, he had to admit that he would most likely be killed by Desolate Marshal if he continued staying here. Yin Zue took a deep breath and grit his teeth, prepared to leave. Suddenly, his expression changed as he looked up at the distant firmaments with a bewildered expression. Could it be? A thought flashed through Yin Zue's mind and he was shocked. On the other side, when the martial Tao prime body saw that Feng Cantillon was injured by the final strike of the heavenly tribulation, he could not help but reveal a worried expression and ask, Senior, you? I'm fine. Feng Cantillon lowered his head and looked at the bloody hole in his chest, seemingly unconcerned. Back when he entered the perfected One Realm and underwent tribulation transcendence, he had only undergone the 8 of 9 heavenly tribulation. Now that he was making use of the opportunity of the martial Tao prime body's tribulation transcendence to experience the legendary 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation personally, it was a huge boost to his Dharmic Tao. Due to the overwhelming number of tribulations in eternal damnation, he could not comprehend everything completely. However, with the opportunity of the tribulation transcendence this time round, he could personally sense the might of the heavenly tribulation and the wrath of thunder. His comprehension of the Tao of thunder became even more thorough. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, Feng Cantillon was plotted against when he was breaking through to the Grotto-heaven realm, causing his breakthrough to fail and his Tao fruit to be crippled. In his consciousness, the Tao fruit had already vanished and in its place was a sea of lightning. It was already extremely difficult to break through to the Grotto-heaven realm. He had failed once and lost his Dao fruit. It was even more difficult for him to break through to the Grotto-heaven realm with this sea of lightning. It could be said that if he cultivated normally, it would be almost impossible for him to step into the Grotto-heaven realm. However, after enduring the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation this time round, his comprehension of the Dharmic Dao of thunder deepened, and he could see the barrier of the Grotto-heaven realm once more. The might of the heavenly tribulation and the wrath of thunder. Feng Cantillon murmured softly. Although his body was damaged and the bloodied hole in his chest was shocking, the sea of lightning in his consciousness rumbled with a shocking power. When the martial Dao Prime body saw that, he nodded to himself. Not only did his true martial Dao body rise to another level in this tribulation transcendence, Feng Cantillon had clearly benefited immensely as well. Everything was practically perfect. After the baptism of the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation, the tripod hell suppression tripod had already advanced to the peak of the perfected one realm and its aura was powerful. Right then, another terrifying might descended from the skies. Even Yin Beichen and the others beneath the hell suppression tripod felt their hearts skip a beat. What's going on? Hasn't the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation already ended? Why haven't the tribulation clouds in the skies dispersed? Could the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation not be the end point? That's impossible. As though it sensed danger, the hell suppression tripod trembled slightly. The 4 sacred souls were also warning the martial Dao Prime body repeatedly. Even Feng Cantillon, who was comprehending the Dharmic Dao, was jolted awake by the might. He looked up with a grim expression and gripped the startling evil spear once more. Desolate Marshal, watch out. There's a change in the world. Feng Cantillon reminded. The martial Dao Prime body narrowed his eyes slightly and was on guard when he sensed the terrifying might of the tribulation clouds above. The heavenly tribulation was not over yet. There was a 10th tribulation above the 9 of 9. The martial Dao Prime body had a feeling that there was a high chance the 10th tribulation was triggered due to the anomaly of the true martial Dao body. His existence was a variable. The existence of the 10th tribulation was to kill variables. The martial Dao Prime body said in a deep voice, "Senior, you're injured. Go hide under the hell suppression tripod first." "It's fine. This injury is nothing." Feng Cantillon gripped the startling evil spear tightly and shouted with a torrential aura, "Let's see what's the deal with this 10th tribulation." Boom! A loud bang sounded from the tribulation clouds. There were no tribulations or sea of lightning. There was only a phantom that descended. It was condensed from thunder and surrounded by resplendent lightning. Although it was only a thunder phantom, it was lifelike. It was a black-robed woman with peerless features and a cold aura. Her black hair fell like flowing water and stopped at her waist. The woman held something that resembled a turtle shell in her left hand and a horsetail whip with a jade handle and white threads in her right. It looked extremely familiar. The martial Dao Prime body's heart skipped a beat. The primordial unity horsetail whip. Dharmic treasures in the form of horsetail whips looked similar, and there were not much differences. However, the horsetail whip before him was identical to the primordial unity horsetail whip that the Green Lotus True Body obtained. Be it in terms of size, length, or the detailed patterns on the horsetail whip's handle, they were exactly the same. At the same time, the Green Lotus True Body sensed something and circulated the spirit consonance art, watching the woman in midair through the eyes of the martial Dao Prime body. Boom! Another thunderclap sounded from the tribulation clouds. Another woman appeared in midair. The woman's appearance was not inferior to the former. The woman's skin was smooth and her brows were like wisps of smoke. Her clothes were white as snow and accentuated her figure perfectly. Just by standing there motionlessly, she exuded an indescribable charm that made one admire her uncontrollably. In midair, the woman wielded an autumn water sword. The moment she appeared, she attracted countless gazes. Far away, the fiends revealed infatuated expressions and knelt on the ground one after another when they saw the woman. It was as though no one would hesitate if the woman gave the order for the fiends to commit suicide on the spot. Only Yin Zue and Fairy Purple River could compose themselves and stabilize their Dao hearts. Two women were conjured from the two thunder phantoms. One was cold and dignified while the other was beautiful and charming. Each of them had their own merits and were peerless. For some unknown reason, when he saw the latter woman, the martial Dao prime body could not help but recall an old friend. The old friend's aura was rather similar to the white-robed woman that appeared later on. She was innately charming and could topple the world. Although they were two women, the martial Dao prime body did not dare to be careless. That was because the auras released by the two women were way too terrifying. Even against Emperor Bo Sun, the martial Dao prime body did not feel such ubiquitous and unstoppable pressure. These two women were even more terrifying than the peerless divine power, eternal damnation. Chapter 2381, 2381 Will of the Heavens. 2381 Will of the Heavens. The black-robed woman raised the horsetail whip in her hands gently, and 3,000 threads gathered, piercing towards the martial Dao prime body like a spear. That single attack released an extremely ferocious power that seemed unshakable. The Green Lotus True Body was far away in Heaven and Earth Academy. When he saw that through the eyes of the martial Dao prime body, he sensed something else. The way the black-robed woman waved her horsetail whip looked simple. However, it seemed to contain a deep secret and was extremely exquisite. Naturally, the martial Dao prime body was fearless against the attack of the black-robed woman. Without dodging or avoiding, he strode forward and punched. Boom! The 3,000 threads collided with the fist of the martial Dao prime body with a loud bang. The martial Dao prime body shuddered. A trickle of blood appeared on his fist. The spear formed by the 3,000 threads could actually tear through the flesh of the true martial Dao body and make him bleed. However, the black-robed woman did not take a single step back after clashing head-on with him. That seemingly slender and delicate body seemed to be hiding endless power. All right. The martial Dao prime body nodded slightly. Let's see how many more punches you can take. Just as he was about to advance, he recalled something and his heart skipped a beat. The combat strength of this black-robed woman was so terrifying that she was not weaker than him. The white-robed woman with the sword must not be weak either. That way, the severely injured Feng Cantillon would definitely not be a match for the white-robed woman. At the same time, Feng Cantillon and the white-robed woman had already exchanged blows. The white-robed woman waved her sword and created sword shadows. Her graceful figure fluttered in the sword shadows in a charming manner. Against that sword technique, Feng Cantillon felt like he had no way of attacking. It seemed as though he would break through the beautiful intent before him if he attacked. Watch out! Without hesitation, Feng Cantillon raised his startling evil spear instinctively. A sword beam lit up for a brief moment. Clang! The startling evil spear seemed to have collided with the sword. Immediately after, more than 10 wounds appeared on Feng Cantillon's body and blood gushed out like a fountain. Feng Cantillon spat out a mouthful of blood and fell backwards, unable to hold on any longer. Suddenly, the martial Dao prime body appeared and punched the side of the white-robed woman's sword. With the momentum of the power, he swerved and arrived beside the hell suppression tripod, sending Feng Cantillon beneath it. Feng Cantillon no longer had the strength to fight given his situation. If not for the appearance of the martial Dao prime body, the white-robed woman's second sword strike might have taken Feng Cantillon's life. Watch out! Feng Cantillon knew that he could not help much and could only remind. The martial Dao prime body nodded slightly and turned to charge towards the two women. Boom! The martial Dao prime body charged towards the black-robed woman and punched out. Like a volcano spewing, the world collapsed and an incomparably domineering power burst forth. The black-robed woman had an indifferent expression and continued raising her horsetail whip. However, this time round, the 3,000 threads became extremely gentle and coiled around the figure of the martial Dao prime body continuously. Before he could touch the black-robed woman, the ferocious power of that punch was completely dissipated. In the hands of the black-robed woman, The primordial Unity horsetail whip was a combination of toughness and gentleness. It was fluid, and although every attack seemed ordinary, they contained endless Dharmic Dao. Each time the distance between them decreased, the black-robed woman would take light steps, and a mysterious pattern that resembled a chessboard would appear beneath her feet. With every step the black-robed woman took, she would step in a special direction and distance herself instantly, using her horsetail whip to whip the martial Dao prime body. The martial Dao prime body attacked consecutively but could not close in. On the contrary, streaks of blood appeared on his body from the horsetail whip. On the other side, the white-robed woman wielded a long sword and posed a huge threat to the martial Dao prime body as well. As time passed by, the martial Dao prime body was gradually disadvantaged against the encirclement of the two women. Right then, the tribulation clouds changed and another phantom appeared. The phantom was not human but an old ape that was 30 feet tall. Its arms were extremely long and almost hung down between its knees. Although its beard was white, its eyes surged with a strange blood glint. Monkey. The martial Dao prime body's heart skipped a beat when he saw the old ape. The old ape seemed to have a similar bloodline to Monkey and belonged to a separate lineage of the ape race. After the old ape appeared, he wielded a shimmering golden rod as well. Roar! The old ape roared at the martial Dao prime body, and his blood chi burst forth. Wielding his rod, he swept towards the latter. Bang! The martial Dao prime body punched out and clashed head-on. The fist and rod collided, but the martial Dao prime body did not budge. Instead, the old ape retreated half a step. Ow! Ow! The old ape was enraged, and the blood glint in his eyes intensified. As though he was in a berserk state, he raised his rod and smashed down once more. The martial Dao prime body still threw a punch. Bang! This time round, both parties did not budge, but the martial Dao prime body shuddered. Indeed, the old ape's strength had increased tremendously after he went berserk. The old ape roared again and struck once more. Bang! This time round, the martial Dao prime body retreated consecutively with a look of shock in his eyes. Every single attack of the old ape was fiercer and more terrifying than the previous. Even he could not withstand it. Roar! The old ape attacked once more, and his rod tore through the air. It was too fast. The martial Dao prime body felt a phantom flash before him and raised his arms instinctively. Bang! An unimaginable divine power collided heavily against his arms and sent him flying. He fell dozens of feet away and slid down, creating a deep ravine on the ground. A sharp pain came from the arms of the martial Dao prime body. The old ape's rod smashed his arms into a bloody mess and even revealed the bones within. If not for the fact that he had attained lesser mastery of the true martial Dao body and his bones were already etched with the martial Dao technique, that rod would have snapped his arms. The tribulation clouds changed once more. Two more phantoms appeared. After one of them descended, the skies darkened. The location of the figure was shrouded by darkness, and nothing could be seen clearly. There was only a hazy shadow. The other figure had golden hair, blue eyes, and was tall. His body shone with a bedazzling golden light, and golden blood chi rose from his body. He was incomparably handsome. One of the two figures seemed to represent darkness, and the other represented light. Who are those people? Why are there so many of them all of a sudden? Beneath the hell suppression tripod, Gu Tongyu had a worried expression. Those phantoms were formed from the lightning of the heavenly tribulation and were not true bodies. Even so, the combat strength released by the phantoms was way too terrifying. The sect master of Tianhuang sect, a monster incarnate whose combat strength was heaven-defying and could even defend against Peerless divine powers, was forced to his current state by these phantoms. Brother Yin, what's going on? Fairy Purple River and the others asked. Any one of those phantoms could make all the fiends shudder in fear. Furthermore, there were now 5 of them. The entire world seemed to be unable to withstand the appearance of 5 phantoms at the same time and trembled slightly. Yin Zue finally revealed a smile. I don't know who those people are either. I only know one thing. The heavens want to destroy him. This is the will of the heavens. The will of the heavens can't be disobeyed. Chapter 2382. 2382, Fight between Dharmic Daos. 2382, Fight between Dharmic Daos, the heartland of the Fiend domain. Apart from Black and Earth-grade sects that fought everywhere for resources and territories, there were also some Heaven-grade sects and factions lingering in this area. At the level of Heaven-grade sects, there would definitely be Grotto-heaven experts presiding over the sect. Those were Fiend kings. This area of Zephyr Thunder Palace was under the jurisdiction of Black Fiend sect. Unlike the Nine Firmament Immortal Domain, generally speaking, no matter how many sects and factions below fought one another, even if one of them was destroyed, Black Fiend sect would not interfere. As the sect master of Black Fiend sect and a Fiend king, Fiend Celestial Black Heaven had seen too many sects and factions rise and fall, and was long used to it. In his opinion, the only way to nurture true paragons for his use was through continuous killing and conquest. As long as those sects and factions were still under his lead, he would not appear. However, this day, on a whim, he sensed a strange energy fluctuation in the distance that was extremely unusual. Zhong Yin. Suddenly, Fiend Celestial Black Heaven spoke. Here. Before long, a middle-aged man in black armor walked over from beneath the hall with a cold expression. He knelt in front of Fiend Celestial Black Heaven. What happened over there? The spirit consciousness of Fiend Celestial Black Heaven moved, and a map of the heartland of the Fiend domain appeared in midair as he pointed to an area. That's the location of Zephyr Thunder Palace. Zhong Yin said deeply, in the past few days, Yin Zue and the others have gathered the 18 Fiend armies and 1 million Fiend cultivators to attack Zephyr Thunder Palace. It's not down yet. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven frowned. I'm not sure, Zhong Yin said. I heard that Feng Cantillon has some tricks up his sleeves. He was once the supreme perfected immortal of the Nine Firmament Immortal Domain and is not weaker than Yin Zue. However, with the help of Fairy Purple River and the others, it shouldn't be a problem for Yin Zue to destroy Zephyr Thunder Palace. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven shook his head gently. Something's not right. An extremely powerful energy fluctuation suddenly appeared over there. Something might have happened. Zhong Yin asked. It's possible. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven nodded and paused for a moment before continuing. It's also possible that Feng Cantillon entered the Grotto-heaven realm. No matter who it is, congratulations, Sect Master. You've gained another Fiend King and capable general under your lead. Zhong Yin congratulated hurriedly. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven threw out a badge. Take my badge and go take a look. No matter who it is that entered the Grotto-heaven realm, have them come and meet me. Understood. Zhong Yin bowed and retreated. At the same time, in another Heaven-grade faction, Yellow Springs Villa, a man who was watering and weeding the medicinal field sensed something and exclaimed softly, looking in the direction of Zephyr Thunder Palace. What's going on? Why is there such a huge commotion? The man murmured softly in deep thought. Godfiend Ridge. A golden-haired, blue-eyed man sat in a resplendent palace, resting with his eyes closed. Suddenly, as though he sensed something, the man opened his eyes and soared into the air, looking into the distance with a bewildered expression. Wind Fiend Sect. An evil wind blew and a figure suddenly appeared, looking at the distant horizon with a playful expression. Zephyr Thunder Palace. The 5 Thunder Phantoms of different races joined forces to attack the Martial Dao Prime Body. Although the Martial Dao Prime Body could not injure the 5 Thunder Phantoms single-handedly, the 5 of them could not injure his foundation as well even when they joined forces. The Martial Dao Prime Body looked a little wretched and was covered in injuries. However, most of them were superficial wounds. As long as the combat stopped, they would recover before long. Each of the 5 Thunder Phantoms had different methods and Dharmic Daos. The black-robed woman's Dharmic Dao was mysterious and was the most troublesome to deal with for the Martial Dao Prime Body. Each time the Martial Dao Prime Body attacked, the black-robed woman seemed to have expected it and could determine his intentions and even retaliate in a preemptive manner through her attacks and trajectory. Furthermore, the black-robed woman's movement technique was agile. The martial Dao prime body attacked repeatedly, but to no avail. Of course, the martial Dao prime body relied on his spirit perception, and the black-robed woman could not cause any fatal damage to him either. The white-robed woman's Dharmic Dao leaned towards the spirit. Her figure was graceful and charming. The Dao heart of the martial Dao prime body was firm as a rock and unshakable. The white-robed woman's Dharmic Dao had the least impact and threat on him. As for the old ape, he was extremely strong, and even the martial Dao prime body could not withstand it. The two people who appeared later on also had strong Dharmic Daos and heaven-defying combat strength. Most of the injuries on the martial Dao prime body were left behind by the old ape and the two people behind him. Right then, two figures appeared from the Tribulation clouds once more. One of them was a man who wore snow-white robes and wielded a long sword. He had a cold expression and shifted his gaze towards the martial Dao prime body without any emotions in his eyes. Swoosh! The white-robed man attacked. A sword beam suddenly lit up and retracted. The martial Dao prime body had never seen such a terrifying sword technique. That sword strike fused speed and killing power to its limits. It was perfect and incomparably stunning. The martial Dao prime body was entangled by the previous 5 Thunder Phantoms and was already at his limits. He could not defend against that sword at all. Flashes of blood spewed out. In a flash, the martial Dao prime body retreated and avoided fatal damage. However, his abdomen was still pierced by the sword, leaving a bloody hole. At the same time, the Green Lotus true body was shocked when he saw that sword. Previously, he saw a tattered piece of white paper in the secret pavilion of the Academy with the words Sword Classic written on it. The Green Lotus true body had long memorized the Sutra of the Sword Classic. However, because it was incomplete, he could not comprehend the contents at all. But now, when he saw the white-robed man's attack, the Green Lotus true body seemed to have an understanding. Suddenly, he felt that he understood a little about the initially obscure and incomplete Sutra of the Sword Classic. After the white-robed man, another figure appeared. Stepping on the galaxies, he waved his hand and the stars shifted. It was already the limit for the martial Dao prime body to fight 1 against 5. The white-robed sword cultivator that appeared almost pushed him to the brink of death. Coupled with this phantom that arrived with the stars, the martial Dao prime body would not be able to escape death. Sensing the danger of the martial Dao prime body, the hell suppression tripod shuddered and the 4 sacred souls left the tripod on their own, letting out a roar. Roar! Roar! Screech! Ow! The 4 sacred souls at the peak of the perfected One realm surrounded the Star Phantom at the back and released ferocious attacks. As for the Star Phantom, with a single wave of his hand, a sea of stars surged and countless galaxies flowed. He fought against the 4 sacred souls with ease and was not disadvantaged. Poof! 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 With the addition of the white-robed sword cultivator, the martial Dao prime body was forced to retreat in defeat against the encirclement of 6 phantoms, and countless wounds appeared on his body as blood gushed out. Before long, the body of the martial Dao prime body was extremely battered, leaving only a skeleton with some flesh stuck on it. It was almost impossible to see his human form. In reality, although the martial Dao prime body seemed like he was in an extremely terrible state, the situation was not completely irreversible. Although the 6 phantoms joined forces and severely injured the martial Dao prime body, they could not sever his bones. Because he had attained lesser mastery of the true martial Dao body, the martial Dao technique was already imprinted on his bones. Although the combat strength of the 6 phantoms was strong and their Dharmic Daos were mysterious, they could not sever the martial Dao or surpass it. This no longer seemed like Tribulation transcendence, but a fight between Dharmic Daos. Chapter 2383, 2383 Hell's Gate. 2383 Hell's Gate. Is that person truly only a perfected fiend? Even this can't kill him? When the fiend saw that, Their hearts skipped a beat as they exchanged shocked glances. Yin Zue said in a deep voice, "That person is already severely injured. Even if he can survive this calamity, he'll definitely die if we seize the opportunity to attack." Beneath the hell suppression tripod, Yin Beichen, Ming Zhan, and the others could only watch helplessly. "Master won't just die here, right?" Heavenly Wolf was unsure as well and muttered. With a melancholic expression, Gu Tongyu sighed gently. "Right now, I'm afraid we can only pray that there won't be any more Thunder Phantoms." Under the hell suppression tripod, the Thunder Emperor, Feng Cantion, assumed a lotus position and closed his eyes, as though he had fallen into a mysterious state. In his consciousness, the surging sea of lightning shrank continuously. His strength was accumulating continuously as well, as though he was consolidating power for some earth-shaking commotion. On the battlefield, the martial Dao Prime Body had nowhere to retreat against the encirclement of the 6 Thunder Phantoms. Suddenly, the martial Dao Prime Body roared into the skies and channeled his essence spirit. He conjured hand seals repeatedly with both hands, and a gigantic door shrouded in black chi appeared behind him. The door was like a dark abyss that was bottomless. At the same time, it was like the mouth of a gigantic beast that could devour everything. This was a Dharmic Dao that was evolved by the martial Dao Prime Body after he obtained the Hell Suppression Tripod and controlled Avicii, Hell's Gate. The black chi that surged around the Hell's Gate was the Avicii Fiend chi that could corrode everything and taint all living beings. "All of you, come in." The martial Dao Prime Body hollered and propped up the Hell's Gate, enveloping the 6 Thunder Phantoms. Fiend chi surged and covered the skies. The Hell's Gate led to Avicii. The martial Dao Prime Body wanted to suppress the 6 Thunder Phantoms in Avicii. A powerful suction force burst forth from the Hell's Gate and pulled the 6 Thunder Phantoms in. As though they sensed danger, they hurriedly released various Dharmic Daos and sword techniques to fight against the Avicii Fiend Chi, wanting to break free from the Hell's Gate. Buzz, buzz, bang, bang. The Hell's Gate shook violently with a loud bang. The first to break free from the Hell's Gate was the black-robed woman. The turtle shell in her hands shone with rays of light, and mysterious runes appeared, as though they could see through the heavenly secrets and divine all living beings. At the same time, she released that mysterious footwork once more. With a single step, a square pattern appeared beneath her feet, as though it was all-encompassing and contained the secrets of heaven and earth. Relying on the turtle shell and mysterious footwork in her hands, the black-robed woman broke free from the Hell's Gate. Even so, she suffered a huge loss this time round, and her phantom faded significantly, turning almost transparent. The second to charge out was the white-robed sword cultivator who appeared last. A single slash of his sword tore through the Avicii Fiend Chi and created a clear sword scar on the Hell's Gate. Although the white-robed sword cultivator escaped, he was still tainted by a lot of Avicii Fiend Chi. After he purged the Fiend Chi completely, the phantom faded as well, as though it had expended a lot of energy. After a crack appeared on the Hell's Gate by the white-robed sword cultivator, the remaining 4 people could no longer be trapped. The old ape smashed down with his rod, creating a huge pit in the Hell's Gate that was filled with spiderweb-like cracks that extended continuously. It was on the brink of collapse. The old ape charged out. Immediately after were the 2 men that represented darkness and light. The white-robed woman came last. Although the 6 Thunder Phantoms escaped, they nearly died inside. Furthermore, they suffered immense losses this time round, and most of their auras were depleted. They were no longer the same as before. The reason why the Hell's Gate could release such a powerful might and devour the 6 Thunder Phantoms was because this Dharmic Dao already contained a trace of a Grotto-heaven's power. The martial Dao Prime Body had just entered the true martial realm and should not have come into contact with that power. However, his martial Dao furnace had smelted too many Dharmic Daos and divine powers. Thereafter, he obtained the Hell Suppression Tripod and controlled Avicii. He was even trapped in Greater Avicii for 1,000 years and tortured. That was the reason why he could imitate an existence similar to a Grotto-heaven. To be precise, the martial Dao prime body had yet to comprehend the power of the Grotto-heaven realm. The Hell's Gate was merely a Dharmic Dao that he had evolved by imitating Avicii. It merely took on the form of a Grotto-heaven, but did not have the intent of a Grotto-heaven. Even so, the martial Dao prime body nearly killed the 6 thunder phantoms conjured by the heavenly tribulation. Be it the 6 thunder phantoms or the martial Dao prime body, they had already reached their limits in this battle. On the other side, the outcome of the battle between the Star Phantom and the 4 sacred souls was still indeterminate. Right then, the tribulation clouds appeared once more. Another thunder phantom descended. Beneath the hell suppression tripod, Yin Beichen, Ming Zhan, and the others felt their hearts sink. The situation earlier on was still balanced, and the martial Dao prime body at least had a chance of fighting. But now, the arrival of yet another thunder phantom would break that balance completely. There was a high chance that this final phantom would end the martial Dao prime body. It was a monk wearing an ancient kasaya and holding a bronze square tripod in his hands. It was extremely similar in size to the hell suppression tripod. However, there were no patterns of the 4 sacred souls on the 4 walls of the tripod. Others might not be able to tell what it was, but when the martial Dao prime body saw the bronze square tripod, he recognized it right away. It was the hell suppression tripod. Or rather, it was the initial appearance of the hell suppression tripod. If the bronze tripod was the hell suppression tripod, the identity of the monk was obvious. It was the infinite great emperor. The martial Dao prime body had never seen the infinite great emperor before. He had never expected that he would be able to see the true appearance of the infinite great emperor one day. Although the 2 true bodies were millions of kilometers apart, they were shocked the moment they saw the monk. Su Zimo had never expected this powerful great emperor who was said to suppress countless evil, and was even willing to transform into a purgatory to look like this. The monk had a warm gaze and looked extremely amiable. After the monk descended with the bronze square tripod, he was slightly stunned when he saw the hell suppression tripod at the side. Thereafter, he looked at the martial Dao prime body with a hint of realization in his eyes. Let's end it. The monk smiled gently and bowed slightly to the 7 thunder phantoms not far away, saying softly. Immediately after, the monk's body exploded and released an incomparably terrifying power that swept in all directions, pulling all 7 figures in. There was no anger, indignance, hatred, or surprise on the faces of the 7 phantoms. On the contrary, the 7 phantoms looked at the martial Dao prime body with a hint of admiration and relief. Immediately after, the 7 phantoms faded and dissipated into the world. The power did not weaken and surged into the clouds, dissipating the tribulation clouds in the skies. Everything returned to normalcy and the world regained peace. The scene earlier on seemed surreal, as though it was an illusion. The martial Dao prime body stood on the spot in silence. A long time later, he gradually snapped out of his stupor and heaved a sigh of relief. Chapter 2384, 2384 There's no future for you. 2384 There's no future for you. Although the heavenly tribulation was over, this battle was not over yet. Watch out. When Yin Beichen and the others saw the situation behind the martial Dao prime body, their expressions changed as they warned hurriedly. Shameless. Gu Tong, you cursed. These people are trying to take advantage of the situation. Yin Zue and Fairy Purple River brought the fiends and made a comeback, charging towards the martial Dao prime body. In the blink of an eye, they arrived before him. Even without the reminder of Yin Beichen and the others, the spirit perception of the martial Dao prime body had long sensed hostility. Ooh, ooh. The sound of a sharp weapon tearing through the air was ear-piercing. The martial Dao prime body did not turn around and punched in reverse. After the 10th tribulation, there was not much flesh left on his fist. It was almost all bones. However, that punch still possessed an unstoppable might that could destroy the world. Clang! When the sharp weapon collided with the fist of the martial Dao prime body, the sound of metal clashing echoed and sparks flew. It was a weapon similar to a spear. However, there were sharp hooks at the tip of the spear. This was Yin Zui's pure yang spirit treasure, heart-piercing hook. It was said that the heart-piercing hook was a replica of the weapon of King Yama of Hell. By piercing it into the chest, it could conveniently draw out the heart, causing the blood chi of the cultivator to deteriorate, and it would be difficult for cultivators struck by it to recover. A look of surprise flashed through the depths of Yin Zui's eyes. He had not expected that the martial Tao prime body would be able to defend against his pure yang spirit treasure despite not having any flesh left. Yin Zui did not know at all that the foundation of the true martial Tao body was his Tao bones. Even the 10th tribulation could not sever his Tao bones. Fairy Purple River hollered softly. Desolate Martial's tribulation transcendence has just ended and he's at his weakest. He has already used up all his methods. Everyone, let's join forces and not give him a chance to catch his breath. Swoosh, 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 boom, boom, boom. As Yin Zui attacked, the sentient Dharmic treasures, divine powers, and secret skills of the fiends descended one after another and attacked the martial Tao prime body. You guys think that you can lay your hands on me? The martial Tao prime body surveyed his surroundings, and his eyes were deep. 2 balls of flames burned in his eyes, but his silver mask was cold. Suddenly, under the gazes of the martial Tao prime body, a heat wave spread from the bodies of the fiends. Immediately after, scarlet flames burst forth from the bodies of the fiends and engulfed their bodies instantly, creating a raging fire. The red lotus karmic fire burned karma. In the blink of an eye, many perfected fiends were burned to the point where their flesh split open and red lotus flowers appeared on their skin in a strangely beautiful manner. Ah, ah, ah. The fiends let out tragic cries. The higher the cultivation realm of a cultivator, the deeper the karma they would be tainted and the stronger the karmic flames that would burn. In that short period of time, dozens of perfected fiends were burned to death by the karmic flames and died on the spot. The divine powers and secret skills released by the fiends that were burned by the karmic flames dissipated before they could descend. When the sentient Dharmic treasures struck the martial Tao prime body, they did not have much strength left and bounced off, scattering on the ground. Cultivation was a heaven-defying act. No matter who it was, who wouldn't be tainted by karma if they could cultivate to this point, whose hands wouldn't be stained with countless blood? Fairy Purple River had harmed countless women and children in order to cultivate her evil cultivation techniques. She was even more sinful and was entangled by negative karma. The red lotus karmic fire dealt the greatest damage to her. Desolate Martial! Desolate Martial! Fairy Purple River shrieked hysterically. As though she had gone mad, she tore at her clothes continuously, wanting to extinguish the flames on her body. However, the karmic flames on her body intensified and surged into the skies, forming a gigantic pillar of flames. Karmic flames burned on Yin Zui's body as well. However, they did not grow stronger after he suppressed them. Break! 2 beams of light flowed out from Yin Zui's yin-yang eyes. One was black and the other was white. Instantly, they covered his body and extinguished the karmic flames completely. Yin Zui was the supreme perfected fiend after all, and a mere karmic flame was not a threat to him. I'll fight you to the death. On the other side, Fairy Purple River suddenly let out a tragic roar. Surrounded by the karmic flames, she bit the tip of her tongue and spat out a mouthful of essence blood. At the same time, she released her secret skill and purple-red blood burst forth from her body with an incomparably nauseating stench. Buzz! Buzz! The purple-red blood splashed on the karmic flames and let out a sound as green smoke billowed. The karmic flames were extinguished rapidly. In the green smoke, Fairy Purple River's hair was disheveled and her clothes were tattered. She seemed to have aged instantly and was in her twilight years. Her face was filled with wrinkles like an old lady, and there was no hint of youth or beauty left. Fairy Purple River glared at the martial Tao prime body hatefully and grit her teeth. Desolate Martial, I'll remember you for destroying my cultivation. In the future, I'll definitely have you return it tenfold. Before Fairy Purple River could finish, the martial Tao Prime Body shook his head gently and interrupted her, saying indifferently, "Don't think too much. There's no future for you." The moment he said that, the aura of the martial Tao Prime Body changed drastically and his gaze turned sinister. Phew! Suddenly, a ball of black flames appeared beneath the feet of the martial Tao Prime Body. A sinister wind blew and the black flames spread rapidly in all directions, sweeping in all directions. From afar, it formed a gigantic black fire lotus. Instantly, Yin Zue, Fairy Purple River, and the remaining fiends were enveloped. The black flames distorted the surrounding space, and the fiends tried to release teleportation, but to no avail. They could not escape. Hellfire. The flames did not feel scorching at all. Instead, they were sinister and cold, containing the painful will of millions of living beings that no one could withstand. The fiends were already severely injured by the karmic flames. Now that they were engulfed by hellfire, they could no longer withstand it. In the blink of an eye, more than 100 perfected fiends were burned into black ashes and their essence spirits were destroyed. In less than 10 breaths, the remaining perfected fiends would be buried here. Fairy Purple River lost the essence blood that she had cultivated for hundreds of thousands of years in order to extinguish the karmic flames. Now that she was faced with the hellfire, she was no longer able to resist and was reduced to ashes as well, dead. Her mystiking mother-child banner was completely crippled after being burned by the karmic flames and hellfire. Countless phantoms of children and women broke free from the banner. However, this time round, the faces of the children and women were no longer menacing or filled with hatred. Instead, they were filled with the joy of freedom. In the raging flames, countless women carried their children and bowed deeply in the direction of the martial Tao Prime Body with endless gratitude on their faces. If not for the two flames, Fairy Purple River would not have died and all of them would have been enslaved by her forever. Without their own consciousness, they would have done evil everywhere. But now that Fairy Purple River was dead and the mystic in mother-child banner was destroyed, the children and women were finally free. Countless mothers and children were reunited and would head to the netherworld to enter reincarnation. Amitabha. When Ming Zhen saw that, he chanted the Buddhist proclamation softly and chanted the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva Sutra to purify the vengeful spirits and help them free themselves. Chapter 2385. 2385 Who would dare claim to be supreme? 2385 Who would dare claim to be supreme? Yin Zue was helpless when he saw Fairy Purple River die. He could barely fend for himself against the impact of hellfire. Splash! The sound of blood chi rumbling could be heard from Yin Zue's body as a tsunami surged. However, he could not suppress the impact of the hellfire with his blood chi alone. Yin Zue endured the pain and torture in his body and channeled his blood chi to its limits. Behind him, a tall figure with a 9 crown on his head appeared. He wore a wide-sleeved robe and sat upright, wielding a weapon that was extremely similar to the heart-piercing hook. Beside him was a gigantic blood-stained guillotine. After the phantom descended, it was filled with a sinister and terrifying aura. Although it was only sitting there, it exuded a supreme might. This was Yin Zue's bloodline phenomenon, the legendary King Yama of Hell. The moment the Yama phantom descended, the skies darkened and the hellfire in Yin Zue's body was completely suppressed. It flickered and looked like it was about to extinguish. With the help of his bloodline phenomenon, Yin Zue's aura surged as he shouted, "Desolate Marshal, your combat strength might be superior to mine. However, you must be dreaming if you think that you can kill a supreme perfected fiend." "Is that so?" The martial Tao Prime Body replied casually. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and took a deep breath. Swish! An endless stream of heaven and earth essence chi surged towards his true martial Tao body as though it was corporeal. Mysterious runes shone on his Tao body as his flesh regrew rapidly. In just a few breaths, the flesh of the martial Tao Prime Body had already recovered, and he changed into a brand new purple robe. Yin Zui's expression changed. He suddenly realized that desolate martial might not have become much weaker after the Tribulation transcendence. Instead, he might have become even stronger. Even the legendary non-existent 10th Tribulation could not severely injure this person's foundation. The bloodline of the martial Dao prime body circulated and was pushed to its limits instantly. When he underwent the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation, he had already released his bloodline phenomenon, the heaven and earth furnace. The interval between them was too short, and he could not release it again. Behind the martial Dao prime body, a gigantic living being rose slowly. It was bathed in scorching red lava and resembled a dragon and phoenix. It had a dragon's head and phoenix's tail, and the claws beneath it were menacing and sharp, lifelike. On the back of the living being was a pair of wings that were scarlet like flames. They flapped gently and were filled with a terrifying aura. The living being looked down at Yin Zui with a cold gaze, as though it was looking at an ant. For some unknown reason, Yin Zui felt a fear that came from the depths of his soul, and even his bloodline gradually calmed down. "This is..." A legend flashed through Yin Zui's mind, and his expression changed as he exclaimed, "Taboo Dragon Phoenix." The bloodline phenomenon was the Taboo Dragon Phoenix. After the martial Dao prime body smelted the Dragon Phoenix true body, he inherited the Dragon Phoenix bloodline as well and had long mastered the bloodline phenomenon. However, he had an even stronger bloodline phenomenon like the Heaven and Earth Furnace and had almost never used the Dragon Phoenix phenomenon. Now, against Yin Zui's bloodline phenomenon, the martial Dao prime body summoned the Taboo Dragon Phoenix. Even against the legendary King Yama of Hell, the Dragon Phoenix Taboo was not disadvantaged in terms of aura and might. On the contrary, Yin Zui's blood qi was suppressed. Since his bloodline had calmed down, the bloodline phenomenon behind Yin Zui swayed slightly and showed signs of dissipating. Yin Zui jolted awake and realized that he could not show weakness at this moment. Otherwise, he would suffer a crushing defeat. Just as he was about to activate his bloodline and prepare to fight with all his might, the Taboo Dragon Phoenix behind the martial Dao prime body roared and charged over. The Dragon Phoenix true body charged towards the Yama phenomenon. The Yama phenomenon did not show any weakness either. Waving the heart-piercing hook with one hand, he raised his gigantic guillotine with the other and fought against the Taboo Dragon Phoenix. Poof, poof, poof. Although it was only a fight between two bloodline phenomenons, it was earth-shaking and was not weaker than the commotion of the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation earlier on. Countless scales on the Taboo Dragon Phoenix's body were peeled by the heart-piercing hook and bone-deep wounds were slashed by the guillotine, dripping with blood. The situation of the Yama Phantom was even worse. It was almost torn apart by the Taboo Dragon Phoenix, and every single wound burned with the Dragon Phoenix flames that could not be extinguished. In a flash, the martial Dao prime body strode forward and punched Yin Zui. Yin Zui spread his arms as well and released dozens of punches instantly, roaring, "Yama Fiend Fist." Bang! Bang! The martial Dao prime body did not dodge or avoid and threw out 2 punches in succession. They were majestic and shattered the force of Yin Zui's fist with ease. No matter what divine powers or secret skills Yin Zui released, the martial Dao prime body punched through everything. He was overwhelming everything with brute force. Yin Zui gripped the heart-piercing hook tightly with both hands and stabbed towards the fist of the martial Dao prime body. At the same time, he released his visual technique. 2 beams of light, one black and one white, burst forth from his eyes and spun towards the martial Dao prime body, as though they wanted to engulf him. 2 flames burst forth from the eyes of the martial Dao prime body. Phew! The 2 flames landed on the black and white beams of light and burned furiously. Before he attained greater mastery of the true martial Dao body, the martial Dao technique was not fused into his eyes. Therefore, the visual technique could not cause much damage to Yin Zui. If he had attained greater mastery of the true martial Dao body, when the visual technique was released, the 2 flames could pierce Yin Zui's eyes and burn them. Clang! The heart-piercing hook collided with the fist of the martial Dao prime body. Yin Zue shuddered and felt an unstoppable power surge into his body through the heart-piercing hook. Against that shocking divine power, his organs were shaken violently and shifted. Yin Zue spat out blood. The martial Dao Prime body turned his fist into a palm grab and gripped the heart-piercing hook. Exerting strength in his palm, he snatched the heart-piercing hook and stabbed in reverse. The heart-piercing hook pierced Yin Zue's chest and heart instantly. The martial Dao Prime body yanked outwards, and the heart-piercing slash hooked out a grisly red beating heart. Yin Zue's blood chi deteriorated instantly. The Yama phenomenon behind him dissipated as well. The hellfire did not dissipate the entire time. Initially, Yin Zue could still suppress the impact of the hellfire with his bloodline phenomenon. But now that his blood chi was depleted and his phenomenon dissipated, he could not suppress the hellfire. One after another, black flames surged over and engulfed his body instantly. A chilling intent seeped into his bones and soul. Yin Zue shrieked tragically and felt pain that he had never endured before. I'm the Supreme Perfected Fiend, number 1 of the Perfected Fiend ranking. I won't be defeated. Yin Zue roared hysterically and was already in a daze from the hellfire. Who would dare claim to be supreme as long as I'm in the Fiend domain? The martial Dao Prime body looked at Yin Zue, who was struggling and screaming beneath his feet, and said coldly, "Who would dare to claim to be supreme as long as I'm around?" When he heard that, Yin Zue was shocked and sobered up instantly. Suddenly, a sense of helplessness surged in the depths of his heart. It was almost despairing. Who would dare to claim to be supreme as long as I'm around? Those words suffocated him. What a bold claim. Right then, a shout sounded from afar. Chapter 2386, 2386, Half-Step Grotto-heaven. 2386, Half-Step Grotto-heaven. Not far away, a cold man in black armor flew through the air with dozens of cultivators behind him. There were 3 perfected fiend experts, and the rest were heaven immortals. Under the hell suppression tripod, Gu Tongyu recognized the background of these people and hurriedly sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness to remind the martial Dao Prime body, Sect Master Desolate Martial, watch out. These should be cultivators of the Black Fiend sect. Black Fiend sect is a heaven-grade faction in the heartland of the Fiend domain. It's said that Sect Master Fiend Celestial Black Heaven has already cultivated to the peak of Grotto-heaven and is extremely strong. He's an overlord of the heartland. Black Fiend sect. Yin Zue, who was on the brink of despair, recognized the group of them right away when he saw their attire and the badge on their waists. A look of hope flashed through his eyes. Save me. Fellow Taoists of Black Fiend sect, please save me. Yin Zue said hurriedly. The martial Dao Prime body raised his head and glanced at the group of people walking over. He ignored them and merely said indifferently, "Nobody can save you today." Before his sentence was finished, the martial Dao Prime body raised his hand gently and a scarlet flame burst forth from his fingertip, piercing into Yin Zue's glabella like a sharp sword. Stop! When the leader of Black Fiend sect saw the martial Dao Prime body raise his hand, he shouted hurriedly to stop the latter. However, it was too late. Yin Zue's glabella was pierced and his consciousness was burned. His essence spirit was destroyed and he died on the spot. How dare you? From Black Fiend sect, a perfected fiend stood out and pointed at the martial Dao Prime body, shouting, "Protector Zhong Yin has already told you to stop, didn't you hear him? You must have a death wish." Another perfected fiend narrowed his eyes and strode forward with a murderous expression. The leader of Black Fiend sect, the man named Zhong Yin, raised his hand slightly and stopped the 2 perfected fiends behind him from advancing. A look of pity flashed through Zhong Yin's eyes as he looked at Yin Zue's corpse. No matter what, Yin Zue was once the supreme perfected fiend and had the highest chance of entering the Grotto-heaven realm. If he could save Yin Zue and make the latter submit to Black Fiend sect, he would definitely become a great help to the sect master. Now that he was dead, it was a pity. However, since the purple-robed man with the silver mask could kill Yin Zue, It meant that he was even stronger than Yin Zue. If he could subdue this person, it would make up for the loss of Yin Zue's death. Only, Zhong Yan's spirit consciousness scanned the martial Dao prime body multiple times, but could not see through the latter's background. However, when the martial Dao prime body attacked earlier on and the remnant aura on the battlefield, he could roughly deduce that the purple-robed man should be a perfected one-realm cultivator. Zhong Yin took another look at Feng Cantian, who was breaking through beneath the hell suppression tripod, and thought to himself, the sect master is truly amazing. Before Feng Cantian even broke through successfully, he sensed an abnormal fluctuation coming from here. Feng Cantian was at the critical point of his breakthrough, and Zhong Yin did not disturb him. If Feng Cantian succeeded in his breakthrough, he would take out the sect master badge of Fiend Celestial Black Heaven and bring Feng Cantian back. I'm Zhong Yin, a protector of Black Fiend sect. Zhong Yin looked at the martial Dao prime body and asked in a deep voice, "What's your name?" "Desolate Martial." The martial Dao prime body replied casually and did not say anything more. Turning around, he tidied up the battlefield and put away the Dao fruits of Yin Zue, Fairy Purple River, and the others. The Dao fruits contained their respective Dharmic Daos and the essence of their cultivation. Dao fruits were great tonics for any perfected one-realm cultivators. They were rare cultivation resources and were the most precious. The martial Dao prime body smelted all Dharmic arts, and Dao fruits were of great help to him as well. Furthermore, refining those Dao fruits could also refine the true martial Dao body. As a half-step Grotto-heaven expert, it was already useless for Zhong Yin to devour and refine Dao fruits. However, the eyes of the three perfected fiends behind him lit up with greed. "Protector, look," a perfected fiend said softly. Zhong Yan's expression was indifferent, and he was in no hurry. After the martial Dao prime body collected all the Dao fruits, Zhong Yin said, "Desolate Martial, hand over the Dao fruits and the few pure young spirit treasures to me. You can keep the other treasures for yourself." "Oh." The martial Dao prime body raised his brow slightly. "You don't understand?" Zhong Yan's lips curled into a cold sneer as he declared loudly, "The entire world belongs to the king, and your location belongs to the territory of Black Fiend sect. All the treasures in the territory belong to Black Fiend sect, and anyone who obtains them will have to hand them over. The fact that I didn't ask you to hand over all the treasures you obtained is already a special gift for you." The martial Dao prime body was expressionless as he asked, "And if I refuse?" Zhong Yin laughed. The three perfected fiends and dozens of heaven immortals behind him roared in laughter as well. Did this perfected fiend before them want to go against a massive entity like Black Fiend sect? That was akin to striking a stone with an egg, a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Do you really think that you're invincible just because you killed Yin Zue and the others? Zhong Yin walked towards the martial Dao prime body and shook his head. "Seems like it's time to dampen your spirit and let you see who's the true master of this territory." Zhong Yin strode forward and attacked first. Suddenly, a pitch-black iron truncheon appeared in his palm and smashed towards the head of the martial Dao prime body. The truncheon was extremely powerful and ferocious. The martial Dao prime body did not dodge or avoid and punched. Bang! The iron truncheon struck the fist of the martial Dao prime body with a dull sound of defeat. The martial Dao prime body frowned slightly and took half a step back. The void behind Zhong Yin caved in slightly. However, no Grotto-heaven appeared. There was only a blurry phantom of a Grotto-heaven. A half-step Grotto-heaven. Over the years, the martial Dao prime body had browsed through many ancient books and secret skills. There were detailed records of the half-step Grotto-heaven. To be precise, a half-step Grotto-heaven could not be considered as a realm of its own. When a Dao fruit shatters, the immense power released could be used to break through the void outside of the body, opening up a chamber that could reach the heavens. However, the process was filled with danger and uncertainty. If the Dao fruit was not strong enough and the Dharmic Dao was not condensed enough, there was a high chance that the Dao fruit would shatter and fail to open up a Grotto-heaven. If the Dao fruit was shattered without any Grotto-heaven formed, That would be equivalent to one's entire cultivation being destroyed overnight. Therefore, during the breakthrough process, if a cultivator's strength is depleted and they sensed that something was amiss and they only had a slim chance of opening up a Grotto-heaven, they could choose to settle for second best. They could make use of the power produced by the shattered Dao fruit to condense a Grotto-heaven phantom. That could be considered as having taken a half step into the Grotto-heaven realm, and the cultivator would have already come into contact with the power of the Grotto-heaven as well. That was the half-step Grotto-heaven. There were two benefits to a half-step Grotto-heaven. First, because one had already come into contact with the Grotto-heaven realm, their lifespans could increase exponentially to more than 1,000,000 years. Second, a half-step Grotto-heaven could release a trace of Grotto-heaven power. Although it was only a trace, in terms of strength, it surpassed true essence and could crush perfected one-realm experts. However, there was also a single reason why many cultivators refused to choose the half-step Grotto-heaven realm. If they chose to settle for second best and stayed at the half-step Grotto-heaven realm, they would never be able to advance to the true Grotto-heaven realm. That was because the Dao fruit was already shattered and turned into a Grotto-heaven phantom. The cultivators would not have sufficient strength to support themselves to open up another chamber that led to the heavens. Therefore, although there was no heavenly tribulation when cultivators tried to break through to the Grotto-heaven realm, it was accompanied by immense danger. They could either choose the half-step Grotto-heaven realm and have no hope of being conferred the title of king for the rest of their lives, or they could focus on breaking through the barrier of the Grotto-heaven realm without retreating. If they failed, their cultivation would be destroyed and they would fall from grace, becoming one with the masses. Chapter 2387, 2387 Suppress All. 2387 Suppress All. Zhong Yin of the half-step Grotto-heaven realm had already used a trace of Grotto-heaven power when he attacked earlier on. The true martial Dao body was only at lesser mastery and was slightly inferior in terms of strength. That was the reason why the martial Dao prime body was forced to retreat a half step. This did not mean that Zhong Yin could threaten the martial Dao prime body. Right now, the martial Dao prime body had just passed the true martial heavenly tribulation and fought against Yin Zue and the others. His trump cards were almost depleted. If he was in his peak condition, the martial Dao prime body could release his bloodline phenomenon and summon the heaven and earth furnace to refine Zhong Yin's Grotto-heaven phantom directly. Oh! When Zhong Yin saw that the martial Dao prime body merely took a half step back, he was surprised as well and frowned. You're actually able to defend against my truncheon? You do have some tricks up your sleeves. Protector, we'll help you. The three perfected fiends stood out right away. Their eyes were red as they looked at the martial Dao prime body and charged over in different directions. The martial Dao prime body had hundreds of Dao fruits on him, and whoever could kill him would have a reason to ask for more. The remaining dozens of heaven immortals waved their flags excitedly to support. Zhong Yin propped up the Grotto-heaven phantom behind him and charged forward once more with the pitch-black iron truncheon. A half-step Grotto-heaven wants to set me back? The spirit consciousness of the martial Dao prime body moved, and he shouted, "Suppress." The hell suppression tripod at the side suddenly flew over. Under the control of the spirit consciousness of the martial Dao prime body, it descended from the skies and released a powerful force that suppressed down. The hell suppression tripod was the key used by the infinite great emperor to suppress Avicii in the past. One could imagine how terrifying the suppression power of that gigantic tripod was. Sanskrit circulated within the hell suppression tripod endlessly and was incomparably sacred. The might of the four sacred souls emanated from outside the tripod wall. Before the tripod descended, countless lights flowed down like a waterfall. Zhong Yan's heart skipped a beat and his expression changed. Under the envelopment of the hell suppression tripod, the pressure was ubiquitous and he felt suffocated, unable to move an inch, let alone attack Su Zimo. Zhong Yin switched from offense to defense hurriedly and raised the pitch-black iron truncheon above his head, wanting to use it to defend against the hell suppression tripod. Boom! Zhong Yan's body shuddered, and his body shrank as his feet sank into the ground. The tremendous force almost crushed his body. Under the suppression of the hell suppression tripod, the pitch-black iron truncheon curved clearly in the middle. Furthermore, the magnitude was increasing. Zhong Yan's face flushed red, and he did not dare to let go at all. If he let go, he would be smashed into sludge by the hell suppression tripod. Protector! The three perfected fiends exclaimed and attacked one after another when they saw that. Go! The martial Dao Prime body willed. The four sacred souls flew out from the hell suppression tripod, and the azure dragon sacred soul, vermilion bird sacred soul, and white tiger sacred soul charged towards the three perfected fiends. The moment the three perfected fiends attacked, their divine powers and secret skills were dissipated by the three sacred souls before they could even land on the martial Dao Prime body. After the true martial heavenly tribulation, the combat strength of the four sacred souls had already reached the peak of the perfected one realm. The three perfected fiends were no match for them. In just a few breaths, the three perfected fiends were forced to retreat in defeat. As though it was intentional, the three perfected fiends were purged continuously by the three sacred souls and retreated to the radius of the hell suppression tripod before long. Under the suppression of the hell suppression tripod and the tripod, even the half-step Grotto-heaven Zhong Yin could only hold out bitterly. The three perfected fiends could not defend against it at all. Thud! The three perfected fiends knelt on the ground and spat out blood. Their faces were pale, and they could not move at all. Initially, the dozens of heaven immortals were cheering excitedly. Unexpectedly, the situation changed drastically, and Zhong Yin and the other three were suppressed by the martial Dao Prime body. Dozens of heaven immortals dispersed, prepared to escape back to Black Fiend sect to seek help. However, everyone suddenly realized that they were already in a deep and dark ocean with no end in sight. Not far away, a gigantic spirit turtle floated in the depths of the sea and watched their every move with a pair of cold eyes. If anyone made any strange movements, the spirit turtle would surface and create raging tides that threatened to devour them. The black tortoise sacred soul was also at the peak of the perfected one realm and could deal with dozens of heaven immortals with ease. The dozens of heaven immortals were rather tactful and did not dare to harbor any designs, merely standing on the spot. In the blink of an eye, everyone from Black Fiend sect, including Zhong Yin, who was a half-step Grotto-heaven, was suppressed by the martial Dao Prime body. Actually, if the martial Dao Prime body wanted to kill these people, he could do it with a single thought. It was not difficult for him to kill a half-step Grotto-heaven with the help of the hell suppression tripod. However, the martial Dao Prime body had some reservations. He was not worried about himself, but Feng Cantillon, who was breaking through at the side. Black Fiend sect was a heaven-grade sect after all. If he killed Zhong Yin and the others, there was a high chance that Black Fiend sect's Grotto-heaven realm experts would be alarmed. If a Fiend King descended, many changes would definitely happen. The martial Dao Prime body could tell that Feng Cantillon's breakthrough was at the most critical moment and nothing must go wrong. Therefore, the martial Dao Prime body merely suppressed Zhong Yin and the others and waited for the final outcome of Feng Cantillon's breakthrough. Boom, boom, boom. Another gigantic shadow floated over from the skies. Dark clouds covered the skies as lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the firmaments. This time round, the dark clouds hovered above Feng Cantillon's head and electric arcs descended from the skies, surging into his body. Feng Cantillon accumulated his final bit of strength and was prepared to fight with all his might. Initially, he had no chance of entering the Grotto-heaven realm with his Dao fruit shattered. However, he did not give up after 400,000 years in the 10 absolute hell. Instead, he comprehended another path and condensed a sea of lightning in his consciousness. Even so, he still did not have the chance to advance to the Grotto-heaven realm. This time round, when the martial Dao Prime body underwent tribulation transcendence, he experienced the baptism of the heavenly tribulation once more. He even experienced the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation personally and obtained immense inspiration. The 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation was something that might not appear even in 1,000,000 years. This was an unimaginable opportunity for Feng Cantillon and was even more precious than any ancient ruin or emperor's inheritance. Under the baptism of the heavenly tribulation this time round, Feng Cantillon gradually comprehended the might of the heavenly tribulation and the wrath of thunder. Finally, he sensed the opportunity to advance to the Grotto-heaven realm. A blazing sea of lightning floated out slowly from Feng Cantillon's glabella. The sea of lightning bathed in the lightning in the skies, and its power rose continuously. However, under Feng Cantillon's control, the size of the sea of lightning gradually shrank and formed a water droplet. Although it was only the size of a fingernail, the water droplet contained the sea of lightning. Electricity intertwined within and was blinding, possessing a shuddering power. Feng Cantillon's Dharmic Dao was condensed in that water droplet. That single water droplet seemed like it could destroy a world. After a long time, the power in the water droplet had already accumulated to its peak. Feng Cantillon stood up suddenly, and his black hair danced. His eyes were widened in rage, and his aura was torrential as he hollered, "Shatter!" Boom! Suddenly, the water droplet exploded, and the endless power accumulated within was released. Chapter 2388, 2388 Grotto-heaven King. 2388 Grotto-heaven King. Boom, boom, boom. The water droplet exploded, and a tremendous power surged into the void, causing it to cave in and be filled with cracks. The transformation did not stop, and the void was still caved in, revealing a chamber that surged with blinding electric arcs. The Grotto-heaven was starting to take shape. One end of the Grotto-heaven was connected to Feng Cantillon, while the other end reached the heavens and connected to the three realms. At this point of his cultivation, Feng Cantillon could make use of the Grotto-heaven to absorb heaven and earth essence chi wildly. He no longer required cultivation resources such as essence spirit stones. A Grotto-heaven was the emblem of a king of the upper world. Only those with Grotto-heavens were qualified to be conferred kingship. A Grotto-heaven could be considered a life-changing transformation for cultivators. They would experience a remarkable improvement in almost every aspect. The power of a Grotto-heaven far surpassed the power of true essence and was a manifestation of a higher level of power. For someone like Zhong Yin, who had cultivated to the half-step Grotto-heaven realm, with just a trace of Grotto-heaven power, he was able to fight against the true martial Dao body of the martial Dao prime body. If one could cultivate a true Grotto-heaven, that power could be considered apocalyptic and their combat strength would rise to another level. During normal cultivation, heaven and earth essence chi would surge into the Grotto-heaven. After the baptism of the Dharmic Dao in the Grotto-heaven, it would be purged and become incomparably pure. By the time it surged into the body of the cultivator, they would only require half the effort to cultivate. The Dharmic Dao that nurtured cultivators in the Grotto-heaven contained pure heaven and earth essence chi and could even nourish their destiny Dharmic treasures, transforming them into Grotto-heaven spirit treasures. In a battle between kings, with the help of the Grotto-heaven, heaven and earth essence chi was almost endless. They could fight and replenish at the same time. Upon entering the Grotto-heaven realm, one could even tear through the void and cross thousands of miles. At the very least, one could travel through a world at will without encountering the danger of the black hole in the starry skies. The only way they could encounter the black hole was if they crossed worlds. After all, worlds were way too far apart and were filled with stars and oceans, as well as many unknown places in the middle. Feng Cantillon stood in midair and roared into the skies, venting the emotions that he had suppressed for a long time over the years. There was indignance, hatred, and anger. However, in the end, he was plotted against and fell from grace, imprisoned for 400,000 years without seeing the light of day. Nobody knew how he managed to survive the past 400,000 years. Even in that cruel environment and despair, he did not give up. Finally, he managed to break free with the arrival of Su Zimo. But now, he had finally entered the Grotto-heaven realm and became an immortal king. However, Everything was delayed by a full 400,000 years. Crack! As though it could sense the rage in Feng Santian's heart, the thunder Grotto-heaven let out a deafening and shuddering sound of thunder rumbling as well. Feng Santian's howl reverberated through the world accompanied by rumbling thunder. The wrath of thunder caused all living beings to go silent. Apart from shock, Yin Beichen, Ming Zhan, Gu Tongyu, and Qiu Siluo felt a sense of joy. Heavenly Wolf blinked his eyes as though he recalled something. His eyes lit up and he looked excited. Master. Heavenly Wolf looked at the martial Dao Prime Body who was still suppressing Zhong Yin and the others not far away and suddenly shouted. What is it? The martial Dao Prime Body glanced sideways. Heavenly Wolf pointed at Feng Cantian who was in midair and said excitedly, There's already a candidate for joy and hatred among the 7 emotions Fiend generals. Feng Cantian is way too suitable for his wrath of the 7 emotions. What nonsense is that? The martial Dao Prime Body frowned and hollered. Heavenly Wolf's interest did not diminish as he continued. If we can pull him into the 7 emotions Fiend generals, the overall strength of the 7 emotions Fiend generals will increase exponentially with an immortal king presiding over everything. Both of you are from Tianhuang mainland, we can definitely discuss it. Heavenly Wolf instigated continuously. The martial Dao Prime Body remained silent and ignored Heavenly Wolf. The 7 emotions Fiend generals were under his lead. As for Feng Cantian, he was the Palace Lord of Zephyr Thunder Palace. Now that he had entered the Grotto-heaven realm and was already an immortal king, how could he bow down to him? Feng Cantian was indeed suitable as wrath of the 7 emotions, but it did not make sense. Heavenly Wolf tried a few more times. When he saw that the martial Dao Prime Body was silent the entire time, he gave up. Right then, Feng Cantian took a deep breath and his spirit consciousness moved. The Thunder Grotto-heaven behind him gradually disappeared. He had just entered the Grotto-heaven realm and was not familiar with its control yet. Feng Cantian looked at the martial Dao Prime Body and bowed in thanks. If not for your help, I would have died a long time ago. Zephyr Thunder Palace would have turned into ruins a long time ago as well. I would not have had the chance to enter the Grotto-heaven realm. Fellow Daoist, you can be considered as the greatest benefactor in my life. However, pausing for a moment, Feng Cantian changed the topic with a conflicted expression. Fellow Daoist, there's something I hope you can reply me. How did you obtain this bronze square tripod? Who did you obtain it from? The martial Dao Prime Body knew what Feng Cantian was thinking. Brother Feng, it's me. The martial Dao Prime Body sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness without concealing his voice. Back when the two of them parted ways in the divine firmament immortal domain, they drank strong wine together and addressed one another as brothers. At that time, Feng Zi and perfected immortal burial knight were present as well. Feng Cantian had once said that rules and seniority were bullshit in his eyes. If it was to his liking, he would befriend anyone. If he did not like it, so what if it was an immortal emperor? Feng Cantian was slightly stunned when he heard that voice. Immediately, his eyes were filled with ecstasy as he burst into laughter. Ha 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 ha, brother, it's really you. Initially, Feng Cantian thought of that guess as well, but he denied it. Now, he was truly certain. Of course, Feng Cantian was certain of one thing. Desolate Marshal before him was definitely not the same body as Su Zimo of Divine Firmament Mainland. After all, the difference in their methods in Dharmic Dao was too great, and there was almost no overlap. Now that he knew the identity of the martial Dao Prime Body, Feng Santian's final worries no longer existed and he was in a great mood. Brother Su, why are you? Given Feng Santian's judgment and experience, he could tell that Su Zimo of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain might be a secret skill like a clone. However, even after he entered the Grotto-heaven realm and became an immortal king, he could not see through the depths of the martial Dao Prime Body. It's a long story. The martial Dao Prime Body pondered for a moment and did not explain. Instead, he asked, Brother Feng, how should we deal with these people? Cultivators of Black Fiend sect? Feng Cantillon frowned and waved his hand. Tell them to scram? There was no deep feud between them, and there was no need to kill them all. The martial Dao Prime body nodded and removed the hell suppression tripod. With a single thought, the four sacred souls fused into the tripod once more. Zhong Yin was thoroughly exhausted as he knelt on the ground, panting heavily. He took out a badge slowly from his storage bag and raised it above his head, declaring, Feng Cantillon, the sect master has orders for you to set off immediately to meet him. What are you talking about? Feng Santian's expression turned cold. Zhong Yin braced himself and grit his teeth. Feng Cantillon, this is a chance given to you by sect master Fiend Celestial Black Heaven. You had better consider it carefully and not fail to appreciate his kindness. Chapter 2389, 2389 Peerless Fiend King. 2389 Peerless Fiend King. Are you threatening me? Feng Santian's gaze was like lightning as he waved his robes. The startling evil spear transformed into a streak of lightning and shot into Zhong Yan's chest, pinning him to the ground. What sort of a character was Feng Cantillon? Back in the divine firmament immortal domain, he was fearless and dared to challenge everything. Even after being imprisoned for 400,000 years, he did not bow down. Now that he had entered the Grotto-heaven realm, how could he be controlled and coerced by others? After his body was pierced by the startling evil spear, countless power of thunder surged into his body. Instantly, Zhong Yan's Grotto-heaven phantom collapsed and his entire body trembled continuously, almost convulsing as blood foam spewed from his mouth. Although Zhong Yan was not dead, his cultivation was almost crippled. Foo-foo. Right then, a dry laugh sounded in midair. Immediately after, a crack appeared in the void and a black-cloaked figure walked out. His aura was terrifying and was far above Feng Cantillon. The moment that person appeared, the skies darkened. It was the sect master of Black Fiend's sect, Fiend Celestial Black Heaven. Sect master. He. When Zhong Yin saw who it was, he tried his best to raise the badge in his hands, as though he wanted to say something. Your cultivation is crippled. It's useless to keep you. With a cold expression, Fiend Celestial Black Heaven merely glanced at Zhong Yin, and the latter's body was gradually shrouded by a black fog. After a few breaths, the black fog dispersed and Zhong Yin turned into a dried corpse, dead. Feng Cantillon narrowed his eyes slightly with a grim expression. Let's get straight to the point. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven looked at Feng Cantillon and said slowly, You've already entered the Grotto-heaven realm. I'll give you two options. First, you can join Black Fiend sect. I value your potential very much and can let you become the deputy sect master of Black Fiend sect. The second option. Before Fiend Celestial Black Heaven could finish, Feng Cantillon waved it off and interrupted, There's no need to say anything more. I won't choose any of your options. I have my own option. Then you are choosing to die. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven's expression darkened as he said coldly, Oh. Feng Cantillon opened his palm, and the startling evil spear transformed into a streak of lightning, returning to his hand. That action had proven everything. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven smiled. Don't tell me you think that you're qualified to fight me just because you've just entered the Grotto-heaven realm? You've just formed your Grotto-heaven. How much of the Grotto-heaven realm's power can you release? Feng Cantillon remained silent. Actually, Fiend Celestial Black Heaven was not wrong. He had just entered the Grotto-heaven realm and had yet to comprehend the power of the Grotto-heaven realm carefully. He could not unleash the combat strength of the Grotto-heaven realm completely and was definitely not a match for Fiend Celestial Black Heaven. Furthermore, even within the Grotto-heaven realm, there were major and minor Grotto-heavens. Ordinary king experts could only condense minor Grotto-heavens. Those that continued cultivating and are able to condense major Grotto-heavens are known as supreme kings. He had just formed his Grotto-heaven, and what he condensed was only a minor Grotto-heaven. However, Fiend Celestial Black Heaven had been famous for many years and had long condensed a major Grotto-heaven that was far superior to his. Even the startling evil spear in his hands had yet to be nourished and nurtured in Thunder Grotto-heaven and transform into a Grotto-heaven spirit treasure. Even so, Fong Cantillon was fearless and his fighting spirit was torrential. Indeed, he had not fully mastered the power of his Grotto-heaven. However, what else was a better opportunity to temper himself than now? The battle against a supreme Fiend King would allow him to control his Thunder Grotto-heaven faster and familiarize himself with the battles between kings. The only thing Fong Cantillon was worried about was the martial Dao Prime Body and the others. Once the battle broke out, he would barely be able to fend for himself and could not protect the martial Dao Prime Body and the others. As a supreme Fiend King, Fiend Celestial Black Heaven had countless powerful methods. There was a high probability he could even condense a major Grotto-heaven and envelope all of them. Brother Fong, if you want to fight him, fight with all you've got. Don't worry about us. Right then, the voice of the martial Dao Prime Body sounded in Fong Santian's mind. Fong Cantillon thought that the martial Dao Prime Body was merely comforting him. The martial Dao Prime Body continued, I have methods that can lead the others to break through the void and leave this place to hide. Fong Cantillon was shocked and looked at the martial Dao Prime Body in disbelief. Breaking through the void and leaving was a power that could only be released by a king of the Grotto-heaven realm. Perfected immortals could not do it at all. However, he knew that this was no small matter, and the martial Dao Prime Body would definitely not spout nonsense. In reality, the martial Dao Prime Body truly could not break through the void and leave this place with his own strength. He needed to make use of the power of the Hell Suppression tripod to penetrate the void and escape into Avicii through his connection with it, returning to the latter to hide. After ensuring that the martial Dao Prime Body and the others would not fall into danger, Fong Cantillon was relieved. Have you considered it? Fiend Celestial Black Heaven asked slowly. Fong Cantillon smiled casually and his gaze intensified. Just as he was about to accept the challenge, a voice sounded in midair on the other side. Black Heaven, you're really too much of a bully. The void split open and a yellow-robed man appeared. He strode over with turbid, yellow eyes that emitted a strange glow. Villamaster Yellow Springs, what are you doing here? A wary look flashed through the depths of Fiend Celestial Black Heaven's eyes when he saw that person. The yellow-robed man glanced at Fong Cantillon and was about to speak when he caught sight of the Hell Suppression tripod in the hands of the martial Dao Prime Body from the corner of his eye, and his pupils constricted. However, the yellow-robed man returned to normal before long and continued. This person entered the Grotto-heaven realm and became a Fiend King. Naturally, I have to come and congratulate him. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven sneered. Don't think that I don't know what you're up to. This is the territory of Black Fiend Sect, not Yellow Springs Villa. I know that. The yellow-robed man smiled. I don't want anything in your territory either. However, you can't be in charge of me recruiting Fong Cantillon, right? You want to kill him, but I want to save him. That's all. Fong Cantillon frowned slightly. After the yellow-robed man appeared, the situation suddenly changed. Furthermore, he did not know the yellow-robed man at all, and did not have any relationship with him. Black Heaven Fiend Celestial sneered again. Do you think Fong Cantillon will submit to you just because you saved him? This person is extremely ambitious, and you won't be able to tame him. Right then, another crack appeared in the void and a golden-haired, blue-eyed man walked out. He was tall and was filled with golden light. Godfiend Ridge. When Fiend Celestial Black Heaven and the yellow-robed man saw that person, they frowned. This was the territorial lord of Godfiend Ridge. He was someone from the god race who cultivated the Fiend Dao and established a faction in the heartland of the Fiend domain. He was extremely famous. The territorial lord of Godfiend Ridge smiled. If the two of you can't tame him, I can give it a try. Ha. Another burst of laughter sounded in midair. A breeze blew past and a fourth Fiend King descended. Fong Cantillon established Zephyr Thunder Palace, so he must be specialized in some Dharmic Dao. In my opinion, why don't you join Wind Fiend sect? I can impart the Dao personally and raise your combat strength to another level. The sect master of Wind Fiend sect appeared and said, Black Fiend sect, Yellow Springs Villa, God Fiend Ridge, and Wind Fiend sect were all heaven-grade factions, and all 4 of them were Supreme Fiend Kings. Although the 4 Supreme Fiend Kings came from different sects and factions, they only had a single goal for this trip, to subdue Feng Cantillon. Chapter 2390, 2390 Battle of Kings. 2390 Battle of Kings. Feng Cantillon had a grim expression. He was not a match for a single Supreme Fiend King, let alone the 4 of them. Brother Su, if the situation is amiss later on, I'll attract their attention. Break through the void and leave this place. Feng Cantillon sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. Although I can't defeat them, it won't be easy for the 4 of them to keep me here either. The martial Dao Prime body nodded slightly and did not reject. Given the current situation, as long as he could escape from this place with Yin Beichen, Ming Zhan, and the others, it would be the greatest help to Feng Cantillon. Without any worries, Feng Santian's chances of escaping from this place would be much higher. Gu Tongyu pondered for a moment and sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. From the looks of it, the 4 Supreme Fiend Kings seem to have the intention of recruiting the Palace Lord. Can we make use of them to kill one another so that we can take advantage of the chaos to leave? It's not that easy. Heavenly Wolf pouted and sent a voice transmission. At this cultivation realm, one can rule over a faction and endless territory. Which of them will be made use of so easily? In midair, Fiend Celestial Black-heaven said slowly, we all want to recruit Feng Cantillon, but he's just one person. There's no way he can join 4 sects and factions at the same time. Don't worry, Feng Cantillon. The territorial lord of God Fiend Ridge had a confident expression and said proudly, as long as you're willing to join God Fiend Ridge, I can naturally ensure your safety. I can even impart to you some secret skills unique to the God race to help you raise your combat strength. Apart from Fiend Celestial Black-heaven and the sect master of Wind Fiend sect, even the territorial lord of God Fiend Ridge made a promise. An expert of the Grotto-heaven realm joining any faction would raise the overall strength by a notch. If perfected immortals and perfected fiends were the pillars of support and hope of the major sects, in that case, immortal kings and fiend kings would be the top experts and titans of the major sects who would determine the limits and future of the sects. Therefore, when they sensed that someone had entered the Grotto-heaven, the 4 Supreme Fiend Kings arrived right away, wanting to take Feng Cantillon under their wing. Fufu. Suddenly, the yellow-robed man smiled and shook his head. The 3 of you make a fuss, but have you asked fellow Taoist Feng for his opinion? In my opinion, given fellow Taoist Feng's boldness, he won't bow down to us. The yellow-robed man had some understanding of what happened to Feng Cantillon in the past. How much courage and boldness did that require? How could someone who dared to do such a huge thing bow down so easily? The territorial lord of God Fiend Ridge shrugged his shoulders gently. Given the current situation, he has to choose between the 4 of us. Does he have a second option? Of course he has. Fiend Celestial Black-heaven said coldly with a hint of killing intent in his tone. The 4 Supreme Fiend Kings exchanged glances with a tacit understanding. The second option was death. If none of the 4 of them could make Feng Cantillon submit, the 4 of them would choose to kill Feng Cantillon. They would definitely not allow an expert beyond their control to rise within this territory. Feng Cantillon had immense potential. If he was allowed to grow and develop, he would definitely threaten their status in the future and annex and occupy their territory. Therefore, if Feng Cantillon chose the second option, the 4 Supreme Fiend Kings would have to kill him. Feng Cantillon, who do you choose to submit to? The yellow-robed man asked. Feng Cantillon gripped the startling evil spear in his hands tightly and took a deep breath. I won't submit to any of you. None of you are qualified. Fufufu. The yellow-robed man was not surprised and smiled. What did I say? Indeed, he chose the second option. The sect master of Wind Fiend sect frowned. Feng Cantillon, do you know what the second option means? There's no need to say anything more. If you want to fight, fight. Feng Cantillon shouted with a burning gaze. The territorial lord of God-Fiend Ridge shook his head gently with a look of pity in his eyes. He walked towards Feng Cantillon. Initially, I didn't want to kill you. However, since you insist on doing so, you can't blame me. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven, the yellow-robed man and the sect master of Wind Fiend sect closed in at the same time. Although it was a pity to kill Feng Cantillon, it was not a complete waste for the four of them. Feng Cantillon's Grotto-heaven contained his Dharmic Dao. After killing Feng Cantillon, the four supreme Fiend Kings could split his Grotto-heaven fragments and fuse them into their Grotto-heavens to strengthen themselves. Bang! Without hesitation, Fiend Celestial Black Heaven summoned his Grotto-heaven. The void behind him collapsed and a gigantic pitch-black cave appeared. It was dark and deep without any light. Under normal circumstances, there was no need for him to do this to a king who had just entered the Grotto-heaven realm. However, at that moment, he was not only facing Feng Cantillon, but also the other three supreme Fiend Kings. The four of them had the same thoughts. They wanted to kill Feng Cantillon and snatch his Grotto-heaven to refine. Therefore, Fiend Celestial Black Heaven did not dare to be careless. Bang! The sect master of Wind Fiend sect created his Grotto-heaven as well. Behind him, a Grotto-heaven appeared with a hurricane engulfing within. Sand and rocks flew everywhere with a terrifying might, causing wild winds to roar in the world. Bang! The territorial lord of God-Fiend Ridge released his Grotto-heaven. His Grotto-heaven was the most terrifying. It was filled with light and shone with a blinding golden glow, floating behind him like a blazing sun that could not be ignored. The three supreme Fiend Kings propped up their Grotto-heavens and charged towards Feng Cantillon. At the same time, Feng Cantillon released his Thunder Grotto-heaven. The size of his Grotto-heaven was clearly much smaller than the three supreme Fiend Kings. It hovered behind him and could only accommodate his body. As for the Grotto-heavens of the three supreme Fiend Kings, they were more than 10 times larger than Feng Cantillon's Grotto-heaven. It was as though they wanted to devour the world and destroy everything. The moment the Thunder Grotto-heaven appeared, it trembled and swayed continuously, letting out creaking sounds. The thunder produced by the Grotto-heaven flickered and could be destroyed at any moment against the pressure of the three Grotto-heavens. The difference was too great. Feng Cantillon had just formed his Grotto-heaven and had yet to fully control its power. Even against a single supreme Fiend King, it was difficult for him to win, let alone the three of them combined. On the other side, although the yellow-robed man walked over as well, he did not attack Feng Cantillon. Instead, he said with a smile, "Guys, I'll leave Feng Cantillon to you guys. I'll kill this junior first." In a flash, the yellow-robed man turned around and charged towards the martial Dao Prime body. He was indeed here for Feng Cantillon. However, he made an unexpected discovery upon arriving here. If he was not wrong, the item in the hands of the purple-robed man with the silver mask should be the legendary weapon of the infinite great emperor, the Hell Suppression Tripod. The yellow-robed man was expressionless because of this moment. The attention of the three supreme Fiend Kings was focused on Feng Cantillon, and they could not split themselves so no one would fight him for the Hell Suppression Tripod. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.